Chapter 30. Plop. Shiro Amakusa didn't even have the strength to stand. 2 holes appeared in his legs. His legs went soft, and he fell flat on his face. Dustless slowly walked over. Shiro Amakusa's face was full of hatred. "It's you." Even though he knew that death was near, Shiro Amakusa still didn't know how to repent. Like a beast that had been forced into a desperate situation, he roared fiercely. "Why did you stop me from saving all of humanity? You ah!" Bang! Dustless stepped on Shiro Amakusa's head. Because he used too much force, Shiro Amakusa's chin hit the floor, and it was instantly a bloody mess. All of his teeth were knocked out, and he was in so much pain that a layer of cold sweat appeared on his scalp. I'm sorry. I didn't control my strength just now. I'm really sorry." Dustless's eyes narrowed into crescents, and he smiled sinisterly. You ah!" Shiro Amakusa screamed in pain halfway through his sentence. It wasn't just his teeth. His upper and lower lips had been ground to mush. It was too painful to move the corners of his mouth when he spoke. You, I don't care why you're looking for that Leo jelly. I'll destroy everything you want." Even though he was grimacing in pain, even though he knew that he was going to die, Shiro Amakusa still went against Dustless. Dustless carefully examined Shiro Amakusa for a moment. "I haven't met an iron-headed child like you in many years." Dustless's eyes flashed with a dark red light. "If you want to play, I'll play with you until the end." After saying that, Dustless moved his foot and landed on Shiro Amakusa's shoulder. It seemed like he was planning to crush him. Saber. At this time, Shiro Amakusa suddenly roared. His face was ferocious, and he scolded in exasperation. "Useless trash, you were actually defeated by a mere cyborg, and the strongest swordsman at that, bah." Dustless was startled by Shiro Amakusa's nonsensical words. Did he mean that Mordred had been defeated? The opponent is an android. Does that mean Sieg? "I failed. It's all because of these guys. Apart from Assassin, none of them were useful," Shiro Amakusa complained. Lancer was killed by Dustless. Ryder was also killed by Dustless. Archer, Atlanta, surrendered to Dustless, and Mordred was also defeated. Just thinking about Shiro Amakusa made sure Jeanne want to vomit blood. What kind of bullshit was this? "Brat, what's wrong with Mordred?" Dustless's foot landed on Shiro Amakusa's shoulder, causing his bones to crack. "What's your relationship with that guy? Why do you care so much about her?" Shiro Amakusa asked hoarsely. It seemed that from the beginning, Dustless and Mordred had an inexplicable relationship. "Technically, she's my daughter, even though we're not related by blood," Dustless said truthfully. "Your daughter?" Shiro Amakusa was completely dumbfounded. The situation was in a deadlock for a moment. Then he laughed maniacally. "That's great. I'm sorry to tell you that your daughter has already been killed by that clone. As a father, your own daughter was killed, and you can only watch as it happened. Curse your incompetence." Shiro Amakusa barked, but Dustless didn't even blink. Although Mordred was defeated and killed, as a heroic spirit, she was already dead. As for Dustless and Mordred, there were no feelings between them. What incompetence and self-blame? Wasn't that just nonsense? But that clone actually defeated Mordred. That's quite surprising. Dustless shook his head, feeling that it was somewhat unreal. Why? Was it because Sieg had a protagonist aura? In any case, Mordred was someone who had inherited Artoria's bloodline. Losing to a mere clone was too humiliating. No matter how he looked at it, it was somewhat inconceivable. "No matter what, you're going to die first." After saying that, Wu Chen stepped on Shiro Amakusa's head. As long as this guy died, no matter who the red team spirit was, they would be done for. "Wait." At this moment, a hurried voice sounded. Dustless's eyes narrowed as a pitiful figure appeared in front of him. "You're already in this state, and you still want to stop me?" Dustless stared at the injured person. It was Assassin. Although she had the advantage in terms of strength, she was heavily outnumbered, so she suffered quite a bit. Her pure black clothes were soaked in blood. "Assassin?" Shiro Amakusa's eyes trembled. He was also very surprised by Assassin's arrival. "Let go of the master. He's just an ordinary person," Assassin said weakly. When she spoke, she pulled on her injuries, causing blood to flow out of the wounds all over her body. "Say that again." I might have heard wrongly. Dustless dug his ears. Motherf asterisk her, this woman was already in this state. She was riddled with wounds. Yet she still wanted to ask him to let Shiro Amakusa go. Where did she get the courage? Assassin, I thought you were different from the others. After all, as an empress, there must be something that's completely different from the other heroic spirits. Who knew that you're still the same? You're no different from those idiots. You all like to say such nonsense. Shiro Amakusa must die. Dustless's expression was cold as ice as he said cruelly. Chapter 31. Ayaya. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silverfang seriously. You're already so old. Not to mention your hunched back, even your hair is white. I can't bear to kill you. Really? I don't see any respect for old people in your eyes. Silverfang looked at Dustless solemnly, not daring to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. Dustless said it nicely, but in fact, his eyes were as fierce and cruel as a beast's. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it was not much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power, which Silverfang could not do. In other words, Silverfang was probably not a match for him. Quick run! The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body is not something a normal human can have. Puff puff puff. After saying that, the atomic warrior spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. What you're saying makes me sound like a monster. Don't accuse me, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is... Silverfang suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, it was not slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really? You're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. It's obvious that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light, and he followed with a whoosh. Silverfang ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless did not follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground, sweating profusely, and said, "He shouldn't have caught up, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll just wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silverfang raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at two insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. There will be big problems if we leave him alone." Silverfang deliberately used awkward words and said, "Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely brutal. They are bloodthirsty, and they don't keep hostages." Silverfang could only hope that Dustless could divert his firepower to the dragon-level monster. "I naturally won't spare the heroes, but I can't spare your hero association either. Who told you to list me as an enemy? What a bunch of fools." Dustless was expressionless as he plummeted from the sky and approached Silverfang step by step. Cough, cough, cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. He stood up miraculously, looked at Silverfang, and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back." "How are you going to hold him back when you're already like this?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it, you have to consider the environment before bragging. How can this be?" Silverfang frowned deeply and looked at the atomic warrior unhappily. Then he stared at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep hatred between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you smooth things over." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless refused directly. Then, 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silverfang were stunned and exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now?" "You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now do you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless held his head lazily. The atomic warrior and Silverfang were devastated. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It was at this moment that a flash condensed on the left side of Silverfang. A pure gold foot cast in gold fell directly. Lightspeed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fang's body. Silver Fang groaned in pain, and then his whole body disappeared. Boom! The apartment not far away was directly hit by Silver Fang. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. It seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. Let's start with you. Go to hell. Laser. A beam of light pounced on the atomic warrior. His memory had been extracted, and this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie. The scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop! The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. Ayaya! I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fang seriously. He's old. Not to mention his hunched back, even his hair is white. I can't bear to do it. Really? I don't see any respect for the old man in your eyes. Silver Fang looked at Dustless solemnly. He didn't dare to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it wasn't much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power. This was something that Silver Fang couldn't do. In other words, quick run. The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body isn't something a normal human can have. What you're saying makes me sound like a monster. Don't accuse me, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is... Silver Fang suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, he wasn't slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really? You're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. I can tell at a glance that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light as he chased after Silver Fang. Silver Fang ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless didn't follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground and said, sweating profusely, "He shouldn't have caught up with us, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll just wait here for a while." Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fang raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at two insects. "Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. If we leave him alone, there will be big problems," Silver Fang said in a deep voice, deliberately using embarrassing words. Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely cruel. They are bloodthirsty. They don't keep hostages. Silver Fang only hoped that Dustless could divert his attention to the dragon-level monster. "I naturally won't let go of Hero, but I can't let go of your Hero Association either. Who asked you to list me as an enemy? A bunch of idiots." Dustless was expressionless. His body fell from the sky and approached Silver Fang step by step. Cough, cough, cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. His little universe exploded as he stood up miraculously. He looked at Silver Fang and said, "You retreat first. I'll hold him back here." "You're already like this. How are you going to hold him back?" "By bragging." Dustless mocked. "Damn it. You have to consider the environment before bragging. How can this be?" Silver Fang immediately frowned deeply and looked at the atomic warrior unhappily. Then he looked at Dustless and said, "There doesn't seem to be any deep hatred between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you smooth things over." "No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight." Dustless directly refused. Then 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang were stunned. They exclaimed, "Are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now? You can understand it that way." Dustless nodded. "Now do you understand why I'm targeting you heroes?" Dustless lazily hugged his head. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang's hearts were dead. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, a flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fang. A pure gold foot cast in gold directly fell. Light speed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fang's body. Silver Fang groaned in pain, and then his whole body disappeared. Rumble. Silver Fang crashed into an apartment not far away. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. It seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. Let's start with you. Go to hell. Laser. A beam of light pounced on the atomic warrior. Since his memory had been extracted, this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie. The scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop. The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. Ayaya. I say, is there no one else in the Hero Association? They actually sent an old man to deal with me. Dustless looked at Silver Fang seriously. He's old. Not to mention his hunched back. Even his hair is white. I can't bear to do it. Really? I don't see any respect for the elderly in your eyes. Silver Fang looked at Dustless solemnly. He didn't dare to be careless. The atomic warrior was a living example. There might be a little difference in strength between the 4th and 3rd ranked hero, but it wasn't much. Dustless could kill the atomic warrior with absolute power, which Silver Fang couldn't do. In other words, quick run. The atomic warrior opened his eyes and roared with all his strength. The power in this guy's body is not something a normal human can have. What you said makes me sound like a monster. Don't simply accuse people, kid. Dustless reminded him, feeling wronged. I don't have any intention of defeating him. My only thought is... Silver Fang suddenly hugged the atomic warrior and left with a whoosh. His escape speed was so fast that he disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, he wasn't any slower than the speed of light of the glint fruit. Really? You're already so old. Why are you still coming out to join in the fun? But his escape speed is too fast. I can tell at a glance that he's an expert. Dustless's body emitted a bright light, and he followed with a whoosh. Silver Fang ran for about a minute. When he noticed that Dustless didn't follow behind him, he put down the atomic warrior and gasped for breath. He sat on the ground, sweating profusely, and said, he shouldn't have caught up, right? Usually when you say something like this, you usually fail. I'll actually wait here for a while. Dustless's ghostly voice came from behind. Silver Fang raised his head abruptly and saw Dustless on the tall building, looking down at him and the atomic warrior. Dustless's playful eyes were full of playfulness, as if he was looking at two insects. Why are you chasing us? Your friend seems to have been taken away by a monster. If we leave him alone, there will be big problems. Silver Fang said in a deep voice, deliberately using embarrassing words. Dragon-level monsters have always been extremely cruel. They are bloodthirsty. They don't keep hostages. Silver Fang only hoped that Dustless could divert his attention to the dragon-level monster. I won't let go of Hero, but I can't let go of your Hero Association either. Who asked you to list me as an enemy? A bunch of idiots. Dustless was expressionless. His body fell from the sky and approached Silver Fang step by step. Cough, cough, cough. The atomic warrior spat out a mouthful of blood. His little universe exploded. He stood up miraculously, looked at Silver Fang and said, you retreat first. I'll hold him back here. You're already like this. How can you hold him back? By bragging. Dustless mocked. Damn it. You have to consider the environment before bragging. How can this be? Silver Fang immediately frowned deeply as he looked unhappily at the atomic warrior. Then, he looked at Dustless and said, there doesn't seem to be any deep grudges between you and the Hero Association. I'm willing to help you mediate the relationship. No need. You all think I'm a dragon-level monster. Then let's fight. Dustless refused directly. Then 10 tails appeared on his back. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang were stunned. They exclaimed, are you that 10 tails? Are you in your human form now? You can understand it that way. Dustless nodded. Now you understand why I'm targeting you, heroes? Dustless lazily hugged his head. The atomic warrior and Silver Fang's hearts were dead. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, A flash condensed on the left side of Silver Fong. A pure gold foot made of gold fell directly. Light speed kick. This solid kick accurately landed on Silver Fong's body. Silver Fong groaned in pain, and then his whole body disappeared. Boom! The apartment not far away was directly hit by Silver Fong. This old man's body is quite hard. That kick just now was like kicking a diamond. It seems that he has trained his body quite a bit. Dustless muttered, then stared at the atomic warrior with terrifying eyes. Let's start with you. Go to hell. Laser. A beam of light rushed towards the atomic warrior. His memory had been extracted and this guy had no value. Dustless didn't need to show mercy. Poochie. The scorching beam penetrated the atomic warrior's head. His skull was directly penetrated. On the top of his head, a fist-sized hole was extremely conspicuous. Plop. The atomic warrior fell to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes were wide open. Chapter 32. This is an undeniable fact. Yuji, you didn't have a brother from the start. Shu only used your brother's body. Following Dustless's words, the atmosphere became unusually tense. Everyone's face was tense. This topic was too heavy. Li, sure, I remember him. He killed my parents. Yuji's eyes were red, and crystal clear tears were rolling down her cheeks. There will be a day when you take your revenge. Dustless patted Yuji's shoulder to comfort her. His gaze was gentle, and then he looked at Jia Yuanxiao. His face was as cold as ice. Now can we go back? Miss Yuji, you really don't want to think about it? Jia Yuanxiao still didn't give up. His tone was a few times heavier. Master Shu, everything up till now. Trash, shut up. Dustless opened his mouth to interrupt Jia Yuanxiao. His pair of calm eyes were brewing flames that could melt everyone. I allowed you to enter my world, but I didn't allow you to do whatever you want in my world. You want to kidnap Yuji with morals? Don't be so smug. After finishing his words, Dustless slightly reduced his aura. Bang! Although it was just a trace of his aura, which was insignificant, to Jia Yuanxiao, it was like Mount Tai was pressing down on him. It was as if the entire world was pressing down on his shoulders. His standing legs instantly knelt down, crushing the floor. So strong. 1,000 Miles Ji and Rima Yuanya were also affected. Dustless didn't target them. The two of them couldn't stop sobbing. They felt as if their necks were grabbed by an invisible hand that could end their lives at any time. Your world? When did I walk into your world? Don't talk nonsense. This isn't your territory. It's the Black Master Academy. Master Shu and Black Master Hui Yin built it together. Jia Yuanxiao was stubborn. Even if his knees were about to be crushed, he still had a deep hatred for Dustless. The hatred between the two could be said to be irreconcilable. Dustless and Shu would not rest until one of them was dead. Shu's follower Shu was also an enemy of Shu. Shu also snatched away Shu's childhood sweetheart Sayaka Hayuan. Dustless grinned and stared at Jia Yuanxiao, who had a painful expression. There was nothing more humiliating than kneeling in front of the enemy. He taunted, "The ignorant are fearless. Yuanjia, tell this brat what my world is." Hearing this, Suajia of the Morning Garden walked to Jia Yuanxiao's side with a cold face. Looking at his painful face, she had no sympathy. She had once told him not to hang around in front of Dustless in the future. But Jia Yuanxiao had completely turned a deaf ear to it, and ignored it. Now that there was a problem, who could he blame? He only had himself to blame. Lord Dustless's line of sight is his god's domain. Every blade of grass, and every tree in sight belongs to Master. Sayaka Hayuan looked down at Jia Yuanxiao. Her faint voice was unusually overbearing, as if she was narrating an ironclad fact. Nonsense. Jia Yuanxiao's face changed greatly. This Sayaka Hayuan was really led astray by Dustless. Her words were not normal. I've spared you once. Now please die. Dustless's face was frosty, and a rough long bone came out of his palm and flew out like a bow and arrow. Puff! Jia Yuanxiao felt pain in his abdomen. He looked down and saw blood all over the ground. In a split second, the bone pierced Jia Yuanxiao's abdomen. Xiao! Seeing this, Rima Yuanya and 1,000 Miles Jikue panicked and hurried over. You two also kneel for me. With a cold face, Dustless's silent Haushika haki fell on their heads. Puff! The two of them suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Their internal organs were shaken. The moment the supreme might descended, it was as if they had been punched by an invisible hand. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and fell to the ground, unable to endure the exhaustion. Cough, cough, cough. Jia Yuanshao kept vomiting blood, and his eyes were dim. He looked up at Dustless with a smile on his face. You're just SOO. You can't kill me with a single move. Jia Yuanshao's tone was very weak, and his breathing was also very small. It could be ignored. The smile on his face was more like joy and pain. You're about to die and you still don't repent? Sayaka Hayuan's eyes were complicated. Seeing her childhood sweetheart die in front of her, she didn't feel sad. She just felt that it was not worth it for Jia Yuanshao. There was no doubt that Jia Yuanshao died for Yulan Shu. But would Yulan Shu be sad because of his death? The answer was absolutely no. I forgot to tell you that was killing Grey Bones. Dustless responded calmly, and then closed his eyes. Ka ka ka. Jia Yuanshao's body inexplicably peeled off, dismembered piece by piece, and disappeared without a trace. Not even a corpse was left. You bastard! Jia Yuanli was stunned for a while before he raged like a raging lion. Dustless in front of him was an intruder who invaded his territory, and he had to kill him. I'll keep you for now, but I have to restrict your freedom. Dustless stared at Jia Yuanli with a playful look. This guy was Yulan Shu's son, and he might be useful to him. Sayaka, take this guy away. Don't let him run away. Dustless ordered Sayaka Hayuan. Find a place to imprison him. Just don't let him die. I won't wait for death. Just as Jia Yuanli was about to stand up, Sayaka Hayuan quietly came behind him. With a karate chop, Jia Yuanli was knocked unconscious. Let go of Jia Yuanli. Rima Yuanli grabbed Jia Yuanli's arm tightly. Her strength was no match for Sayaka Hayuan, who had drunk Dustless's blood. She quickly gave up and looked at Sayaka Hayuan indifferently. The difference in strength was too great. Chapter 33. Ayaya. What a terrifying monster. Will we be digested if we continue to stay here? Will we be excreted like feces? Dustless touched his chin and looked at Jester with a faint smile. Everyone was speechless when they heard this. Is there something wrong with you? We're about to be killed, and you're still making such a silly joke. It's a bit rude, but that's exactly what Sir meant. Jester nodded. If they couldn't get out, they would be digested and excreted like feces. We just saved my mother, and now we're going to die. Wanlia gritted her teeth. Her slightly ferocious face showed that she was unwilling. Even if you want to die here, I don't want to. I haven't had enough fun yet, Dustless replied calmly. And then a flash of light appeared between his fingers. Dustless released a large amount of spiritual pressure from his body. The void flash between his fingers became denser and denser, and its power became stronger and stronger. After a while, Dustless flicked his fingers and a blue light swept out. Wang Su's flash. Boom, boom, boom. The ugly monster, which was as big as a mountain, exploded on the spot. A huge hole was blown in its abdomen by the void flash, and blood spurted out dozens of meters away. The monster died on the spot. Dustless and the others flew out one after another, and escaped safely. Damn it, you actually managed to escape. On a dense tree in the distance, two blurry figures stood. The two of them blended into the leaves, and it was difficult to see them with pure vision. Moreover, the two of them were surrounded by a layer of transparent light, like a barrier, which could prevent others from perceiving them. These two people were Raz and Dongqingring. Originally, the two of them were here to send off Dustless. Who would have thought that this guy would be so strong and crush Zorkiel so violently? Even that monster was killed instantly. What are we going to do next? Dongqingring asked. He glanced at Dustless from the corner of his eyes, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. What else can we do? We're running for our lives, of course. Raz snorted in annoyance. They were going to fight Dustless alone? Forget it. Even if there were 1,000 of them, they would still be crushed. Are we just going to watch this guy leave? Dongqingren asked in dissatisfaction. His words implied that he wanted to have a big fight with Dustless. If you have any unrealistic thoughts, I advise you to put them down. You are not his opponent yet. Moreover, We have already found an ally. The current Demon King Leonhardt is willing to help us. Ra's words were shocking. His words made Dong Chungrun smile. Really? Dong Chungrun was extremely excited, although he did not know who this Demon King was, and he had never seen him in person. Since he was able to sit on the Demon King's seat, he must be extremely powerful. Furthermore, he controlled an army. Alright, let's retreat for now. Taking a deep breath, Dong Chungrun suppressed his anger. There was still a long time in the future. There was no need to rush for revenge. Although he wanted to kill Dustless, he was not stupid. This guy was so powerful that he could destroy heaven and earth. Not to mention himself. Even if he teamed up with Ra's, they might be killed in an instant. Speaking of which, when did that Demon King become enlightened? Why is he helping us? I am from the Hero Tribe. Dong Chungrun turned around and asked in surprise. The Hero Tribe and the Nephilim Tribe had always been at odds. In the past, they even had a big war. Although the war was later stopped, both sides still did not see eye to eye with each other. Now that the Demon King was willing to help Dong Chungrun, it was indeed unbelievable. That guy is too strong. The stronger the person, the more unscrupulous they are. Although he has no grudge with Leonhardt, the strong have a common problem, and that is they don't like to follow the rules. Raz said mysteriously. What he meant was that Leonhardt had already regarded Dustless as a threat. In Dustless's house, after rescuing Wanlia's mother, everyone realized that there was one more beautiful woman. Many people looked at him differently. Jue put her hands on her hips and looked at Dustless angrily. Her spittle flew all over the place. You are really a... Before she could finish her sentence, she stopped. Looking at her carefully, her cute cheeks were already red, and her eyes had become blurred. Obviously, the curse was activated again. You are really asking for trouble. Seeing this, Dustless could not help but laugh. The curse would be activated if she had the slightest thought of disobeying him. Help me. Jue laid in Dustless's arms, and her voice softened. It sounded like she was asking for help, but her soft tone was more like a disguised request for one soul. Hearing this, the girls looked at Jue with pity. At the same time, everyone stared at Wanlia with resentment. This evil curse was so evil that if she had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, she would be retaliated. It worked every time. Next time you can solve it yourself. Dustless glared at Jue fiercely, then carried her to the bedroom. Everyone knew what to do next. This curse is too evil. Even a nightmare should go to hell. Rafa and Irene couldn't help but shrink her legs. Hearing Jue's slight moan, her pretty face turned red. Soon, she would also sign a master-servant contract with Dustless. If she had the slightest thought of disobeying Dustless, the curse would follow. Just thinking about it was scary. Only this way can we test if you are loyal to Sir Dustless. Those who have a guilty conscience must be afraid. Wanlia snorted. Everyone looked at each other, and they could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. Most of them were forced by Dustless using despicable means. Loyalty? Definitely not. It was good enough that they could resist killing him. Chapter 34. It's no wonder that Kushina questioned Dustless. After all, it takes more than 4 days to travel from Konoha to the Sands base, which means that Dustless only took half a day to annihilate the supply force protected by the Ichibi. In fact, Jiraiya also had doubts about Dustless's answer, but since they are all teammates, it's hard to say. Although he has great confidence in Dustless and his Mangekyo, annihilating hundreds of elite ninjas and Jinchuriki in half a day is obviously not scientific. Uchiha Dustless, did you just say that you annihilated the supply force of the sand in half a day? Trying to suppress the anger in her heart, Kushina's beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Do you think you're a god? Even if the Hokage himself went out, it would be impossible to annihilate such a force in half a day. Maybe he would even get beaten up by the other side. Jinchuriki is a real Kage tier ninja, and there are dozens of elite ninjas. You said that you annihilated them in half a day. Who would believe it? Indeed. Dustless looked at Kushina's eyes, and then directly ignored her, and said in an extremely indifferent tone. He didn't understand what was going on with this woman. Why was she deliberately targeting him? Is it because I stole Minato's script? Is that why she's targeting me? Noticing that Uzumaki Kushina was looking at him more and more unkindly, Dust secretly thought about it, and immediately shook his head. Uzumaki Kushina's character was not that kind of narrow-minded person. He and Minato didn't have any competitive relationship. The two of them were completely different existences. Kakaka. Seeing that Dustless still admitted that he annihilated the supply force of the sand, Kushina suddenly became furious, and her seemingly soft little hand directly smashed the table into pieces, and asked coldly, "Dustless Uchiha, I admit that you are very strong, but the people here are not 3-year-old children. Don't you think that lies are ridiculous?" Kushina sneered at Dustless's expressionless face. The only ones who can defeat the supply force of the sand in half a day are Hashirama and Madara. There is no Uchiha Dustless. So that's how it is. Dust looked at Uzumaki Kushina with a strange expression. He finally understood what she meant and said lightly, "You mean to say that the annihilation of the sand's supply army was a scam, and it was actually for my own merits?" Humph. Hearing this, Kushina just snorted. Although she didn't say anything, there was no doubt that this was what she meant. The Manjikyu Sharingan is terrifying, but to defeat a Jinchuriki, using Jinjutsu is useless, because the bijou inside the Jinchuriki can interfere with his chakra, and Jinjutsu is useless. Kushina coldly looked at Dustless. Why does she know that Jinjutsu is useless against a Jinchuriki? Because she is the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. Although she hasn't seen the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan with her own eyes, she is still an Uzumaki. Even if the Uzumaki clan has completely declined, she is still a descendant of the Six Paths. And even if she doesn't know everything about this distant relative, she still has a basic understanding of him. At least in Kushina's eyes, Dustless shouldn't be so strong. Unless you prove your strength. Kushina's tone suddenly changed, and her beautiful eyes stared at Dustless, and she said, "Unless you have the strength to defeat me, then you can't do it." Haha. Hearing this, Dustless directly laughed, and looked at Kushina with contempt, as if he was looking at a clown. What's so funny? Seeing this, Kushina was instantly angry, and her eyes were burning with anger. She originally wanted to give Dustless a way out, but she didn't expect the latter to be so insensible and make fun of her. Defeating you doesn't mean anything. As long as I defeat you, I have the strength to defeat a bijou. Don't you think your question is too ridiculous and naive, Uzumaki Kushina? Dustless said sarcastically, although Kushina's chakra is scary, but what does it mean? You and I are not in the same dimension. Looking at Kushina faintly, Dustless's calm and powerful voice sounded, and his voice was full of confidence. It's not that Dustless is exaggerating. Although Kushina's strength is not bad, she's still young, and she hasn't reached the late stage yet. Defeating her now is really not difficult for Dustless. Of course, the premise is that she doesn't use the power of the Kyuubi. Although using the power of the Kyuubi is a bit difficult for Dustless, it's really not difficult to defeat her. Are you kidding me? Hearing this, Uzumaki Kushina was furious. She was mocked by Wuchen for not being in the same dimension as her, which was tantamount to a direct slap in her face. She didn't know when, but all kinds of sharp ninja weapons appeared in her hands, and she immediately flashed behind Dustless and tightly choked his neck, and in the blink of an eye, she subdued Dustless. You're just SOSO. Kushina was proud, and when she was about to despise Dustless for overestimating himself, she suddenly felt a burning sensation on her hand, and she subconsciously retracted her hand. Dustless's body was covered with a golden luster, and after a while, his whole figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was holding the Kushina sword, and the sharp blade was pointed at Kushina's throat, and his indifferent little face was full of indifference, and his eyes were emotionless. I'm right, you and I are not in the same dimension, and I don't like to joke. She looked at the red-faced Summer Vega, who had yet to wake up. He seemed to have been provoked. If it doesn't work, I'm willing to hand over his head to you. Dustless made a solemn vow. His words completely crushed Thousand Winter Weaver's last line of defense. Fine, let's try it. Thousand Winter Weaver gritted her teeth, and finally agreed with a red face. She and Dustless had already done some things in the past anyway. She just hadn't broken through the final barrier yet. Hee hee, that's good. Dustless smiled proudly. He then turned to Cecilia and Huang Lingyin. You two should leave. It's not appropriate for us to be seen doing that kind of thing. Not appropriate, my ass. Dustless, you bastard. How dare you take advantage of my misfortune? I'll kill you today. The motionless Summer of Weaving suddenly jumped up, as if he was possessed by a wolf or a tiger. He pointed at Wu Chun and scolded. You quack, I'm fine. You're the one in a vegetative state. You actually want to take advantage of my sister. Shameless scum. After scolding Dustless, Summer Vega revealed a smug smile. He had exposed this despicable man's dirty plan. Everyone would definitely see him in a new light. Oh, you're finally awake. Aren't you tired of pretending? Dustless let go of Vega and looked at Huang Lingyin. Mission accomplished. I'm going back to sleep. Let's meet your parents some other day, Lingyin. Meet my parents. Summer Vega was taken aback. What did that mean? Lingyin paid a huge price to get Dustless Sama's help. She now belongs to Dustless Sama. It's all thanks to you. Cecilia took the opportunity to add salt to the wound. This sentence couldn't be any simpler. In order to get Dustless's help, she had sacrificed herself. The funny thing was that Summer Vega didn't have any illness at all. It was all an act by the kid. Idiot, intelligence is a good thing. Go home and practice before you play with me. Casting a glance at Weaver Spot Isya, Dustless left. A burst of carefree laughter reverberated in the entire space. Tonight's self-written and self-directed drama was very exciting. Vega. Summer. I'll hate you forever. Huang Lingyin couldn't hold back her tears any longer. She left in tears. What's going on, Sister Thousand East? Summer Vega stared blankly at Thousand East. It was ridiculous. You idiot. Slap. A palm print appeared on Summer Vega's face. Thousand East had given him a merciless slap. Chapter 36. Haha. Do you have enough brains? I know you're strong, but this little girl is still in my hands. I'll kill her if she tries anything funny. Ernst was not afraid of Dustless's killing intent. Even though he knew this guy was unfathomably strong, he had an advantage, a hostage. Thinking of this, Ernst could not help but admire his own resourcefulness. Scum. Pomelo's face was red as she shouted angrily. The ignorant are fearless, Dustless sighed. His tone was full of pity as he said, Your celestial race was recently destroyed. Only a few escaped. Do you know who did it? How do you know about this? Ernst looked at Dustless in shock. As a member of the celestial race, he naturally knew that the celestial race was recently destroyed and suffered heavy losses. This race was almost wiped out. Only a few managed to survive. Thinking of the mastermind behind this, Ernst felt his scalp go numb. Even the big shots in the celestial realm found it difficult to deal with such a strong enemy, let alone him. Are you afraid of him? Dustless asked again with a teasing look on his face. Nonsense. Who wouldn't be afraid of such an existence? Ernst snorted coldly. Fortunately, he was not in the celestial realm. Otherwise, he would definitely be dead. Ha ha ha. Dustless's smile grew wider as he said, Actually, I'm the culprit behind the destruction of the celestial race. Do you believe me? Believe my ass. Ernst snorted disdainfully. You're very strong, but you're still lacking if you want to destroy our celestial race. A mere human could destroy the entire celestial race? He would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. But he's the one who destroyed the celestial race. A cold and pleasant voice sounded, intoxicating like a fragrant wind. Ernst was overjoyed. He quickly turned around and said in surprise, Lady Freya, it's really you. This person beside you is. Looking at Rafa and Irene. Ernest seemed to know her as well. Impossible. You should have been imprisoned. Who let you out? He exclaimed in shock. Of course it's me. I'm also the one who destroyed the Protoss. Dustless's voice rang out again. Ernst's face twitched. Kneel down and apologize, Onis. Resisting him will only lead to destruction. Hasegawa coldly said. This guy had eyes but couldn't see, so who could he blame? Was it really you who destroyed the gods in heaven? Ernst's voice trembled. He did not expect this smiling young man to be so terrifying. Did he destroy the heaven realm alone? Just thinking about it made him feel a chill run down his spine. Countless great figures had died at the hands of Dustless, let alone him. Do I need to lie to you, kid? Dustless asked and pointed at Irene. He smirked and said, Come call me master. Hearing this, Rafa and Irene's expression slightly changed. Looking at Dustless's unquestionable expression, they could only helplessly call out, Greetings, master. That soft voice made one's body go limp. Damn it, am I dreaming? Aeone slapped himself in the face. The burning pain told him that this was not a dream. Then, he looked at Rafa Irene in disbelief and exclaimed, You are also one of the 10 gods of the celestial realm. Why did you submit to this guy? However, Irene did not even look at him. She seemed to be disdainful and directly ignored him. Although they were all Protoss, there were still differences between the nobility and the lowly. Ernst, why aren't you letting her go? Hasegawa coldly shouted. Aye. Ernst hesitated. He wanted to let her go, but also did not want to. If he let her go, what if Dustless turned hostile? I've given you a chance. A gloomy voice came from behind. It was as cruel as a poisonous snake. Ernst quickly looked back. It was Dustless who had appeared out of nowhere. What made Ernst despair the most was that a golden sword was floating above his head. Wait, I still have something to say, you. Pucci. Before Ernst could finish his words, the Kusanagi sword slashed down. His body was split into 2 halves on the spot. A large amount of blood splattered out. Amaterasu. The smell of blood in the air was really unpleasant. Then a black flame fell on Ernst's body and burned him into nothingness in a short time. You're really cold, Hasegawa. Dustless looked at the unmoved Nagayakawa and Rafa Irene. The 2 of them didn't even look at Eunice. Should I sympathize with this guy? He was originally monitoring me. He deserved to die. Hasegawa's face was ruthless. Not to mention that she had already pleaded for Ernst. At the same time, her tone had a trace of arrogance. Although we are of the same race, there are differences between Protoss. Hearing this, Dustless shrugged. This was true. After all, she was also one of the 10 gods. What the hell was Ernst? He was just a mere scum. By the way, why did you suddenly come? Looking at the 2 women, Dustless suddenly asked. He did not inform them to come, and there was no need for them to come. After you left, someone came to take Pyrolite to the demon realm. Hasegawa and Irene looked at each other and said slowly, Those guys are not good people. Reject them all. The demon realm is a place that eats people without spitting out the bones. Pyrolite is too simple and not suitable for that place. Dustless said coldly. Unfortunately, that person claimed to be Pyrolite's uncle. His name is Ramses. Even if we stop him, Pyrolite will meet him. Hasegawa shrugged. This kind of thing could not be stopped at all. After all, the 2 sides were related by blood. Troublesome things are piling up one after another. Dustless rubbed his eyes. Then his face showed a touch of coldness. Then let's go to the demon realm to take a look. Maybe we can meet that stinking brat Dongchungringing. Dongchungringing's whereabouts were not found in the heavenly realm or the human world. Where else could this brat go except to the demon realm? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 37. At this moment, an uninvited guest had arrived at Dustless's house. The newcomer was a woman. She was graceful and beautiful, and her appearance was somewhat similar to Wanlia and her mother Sheila. It was worth mentioning that this woman was wearing a maid's uniform. Sister Lucia. When Wanlia saw the maid, she was slightly surprised. She seemed to have thought of something. Master Chung is now Master's servant. You'd better not take her away. Especially when you don't even greet me. Master? Hearing Wanlia's address, Lucia's big purple eyes showed a trace of displeasure. Is that guy worth you being so humble? Yes, he is. Even I am tempted by that guy. Wanlia's mother, Shara, seemed to have come out of a different dimension. She suddenly stood in front of Lucia and licked her lips. Her eyes were shining. Dustless is very strong, even in that aspect. He fought with Chung for more than 10 hours and knocked her out. Hee, his stamina is ridiculously strong, isn't it? If it were anyone else, they would have been too ashamed to show their faces. But to Wanlia, her mother Shara, and Lucia, The three of them were as calm as still water. They did not feel uncomfortable at all, as if it was a common thing. I don't understand what's so special about that dustless guy. This time, I'm only here to pass on Lord Ramses's order. We must take Changse away. Lucia's expression was serious, and her tone was unquestionable. It was as if anyone who said no was her enemy. This forceful attitude made Wanlia and Shara frown. They had been together for some time, and they knew that Dustless was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Lucia's tone was so firm that Dustless would be dissatisfied sooner or later. Coming to my territory and causing trouble. If it was Ramses himself, it would be fine. But you are just a servant. Where did you get the courage? Dustless had not arrived yet, but his unhappy voice rang in their ears. In the distance, a ray of divine light streaked across the sky and rushed toward them. You're here just in time. Lucia raised her eyebrows. She was curious about Dustless, whom her sister Wanlia and mother Shara admired. Buzz buzz buzz. Light condensed in the room as Dustless strolled out. Photons floated around him, and under the contrast of the golden light, he looked like an inviolable god. You are Dustless Chingsakuan's master? Lucia was absent-minded for a moment, but when she recalled Dustless's strength, she respectfully said, Lord Ramses hopes that Chengiz Kodo will go to the demon realm. In the end, it was still a world where the strong ruled. Strength determined everything. Hearing this, Dustless only swept a few glances at Lucia, and calmly inquired. Since he wants to take Hui to the demon realm, why doesn't he come himself? Sending a servant to deliver a message, who are you looking down on? Displeasure flashed in Lucia's eyes. Wasn't this implying that she wasn't qualified? Lord Ramses still has to guard against Demon King Leohart. How can he leave the demon realm at will? And, what does this have to do with me? Dustless rudely interrupted Lucia, and unreasonably said, I don't have a good impression of that smelly old man. As his voice fell, Dustless glanced at Shara intentionally or unintentionally. Shara and Ramses had given birth to Wanlia, so the relationship between them was self-evident. He thought that Shara would be angry, or even angry, but her delicate face was calm. She just looked with interest at how the gloomy Lucia would deal with Dustless. Lucia's beautiful eyes flickered with a faint cold light. She looked at Dustless for a moment, and then expressionlessly asked, Who are you calling a smelly old man? I didn't hear you clearly. Please repeat it, Your Excellency. Boom, boom, boom. Lucia burst out with a large-scale magic fluctuation, and the magic light flashing behind her almost materialized. She glared at Dustless with great hostility and coldly said, I forgot to tell you, Lord Ramses is Huey's uncle. How can an outsider like you interfere with their meeting? Family? The sneer on Dustless's face became thicker, and it was as cold as ice. He turned a deaf ear to the pressure released by Lucia, and ignored it, as if it were air. He contemptuously said, Family? Do you understand the true meaning of family? When Hui was being hunted down, why didn't that uncle of hers come to help? Don't find excuses for me. If you really treat Hui as your family, you should understand that nothing in this world is more important than family. Now that I've killed Zukil, Ramses has jumped out. Bah! Dustless sneered and scoffed at Ramses. That old man invited Hui to the demon realm, to awaken her demon king power. Although the intention was good, it would definitely cause the strong dissatisfaction of the current demon king Leonhart. It was tantamount to directly pushing Hui to the front, and Leonhart would definitely not let her go. With Ramses's current strength, it was impossible to protect Hui. In a way, it was tantamount to directly pushing Chung Setsuya into the fire pit. Buzz buzz buzz. At this moment, the space suddenly trembled and collapsed. The irregular crack quickly expanded. An endless purple light erupted from it. It was like a space door, and a burly and old figure walked out of it. Dustless squinted and carefully looked at the person in front of him. Ramses. The red-haired old man gently nodded, and looked at Luoyu with a complicated expression and a trace of shame. As Dustless said, nothing in this world was more important than family, but when Hui was in danger, he had been busy with other things. I'm sorry. After a moment of silence, Ramses finally lowered his head in shame. You don't need to apologize to me. You got the wrong person, so you should apologize to me. Dustless's tone softened. Chapter 38. Hearing this, Dustless's expression was stiff. He was silent for a long time, and his expression was calm and collected. This made Ariella extremely surprised. If a normal person were to hear of such a crazy plan against them, they would be scared witless, or at least pale with fright. But Dustless sounds interesting. No idea how long had passed either. Dustless responded with a sentence. Interesting. Ariella dug her ears, thinking that she had misheard. She looked at Dustless speechlessly and said, "Did you not hear what I said? Someone wants to use your essence for an experiment. And now you're telling me that it's interesting? Are you crazy? What's so strange about this? In the past, it's not like I haven't encountered this kind of thing before." Dustless's expression did not change, and he spoke naturally. In those clear eyes, there was an eternal indifference brewing. This pair of eyes, this pair of bright and wise eyes, did not seem to care about anything. I think you've given up." Ariella snorted in disdain. In her opinion, Dustless had already given up, because this guy was already under her control. Perhaps he had already let go of his stubbornness. So what if he was dissatisfied? He could not even get past her. "Those guys don't dare to face me directly, so they used you, the ace spy?" Dustless changed the topic, and looked at Ariella seriously, and reminded her, "Don't tell me you didn't see it. Those guys have already abandoned you, and you're still willing to work for them? My business is not for you to interfere." Ariella replied coldly, but there was a clear trace of pain in her eyes. Looks like you're still not satisfied." Dustless smiled faintly. "If you're not satisfied, why don't you fight against your own fate? Even an ant has the right to struggle. I'm going to fight against Knifer alone? You must be kidding me." Ariella's tone revealed a trace of fear, as if she was afraid of Knifer's organization. She bitterly mocked herself. They're a military organization, and I'm alone. Even if I'm dissatisfied, what can I do? In this world, there are always people who are sacrificed as tools. And Ariella belonged to the category of tools. No, I don't agree with this." Dustless shook his finger, his whole body exuding an aura of vicissitudes, and only heard him speak like an old man. "Kid, it's okay to be looked down upon by others. You're still young, and you still have a long way to go in the future. Even if you lose your face now, you can still earn it back in the future. No matter what, you have to remember that if you look down on yourself, your future will definitely be filled with darkness." Hearing this, Allegra fell silent. His brows furrowed and relaxed at times. It sounded like there was some truth in his words. Stop trying to bewitch me." After a moment of silence, a cold light flashed across her face, and Ariella leaned forward, directly lying on Dustless's body, her soft hand covering Dustless's mouth to prevent him from continuing to talk. She coldly said, "You can't even protect yourself, and you still have the mood to bewitch me? It's a waste of talent if you don't become a speaker." "Kacha." Without hesitation, Eli tore Wu Chen's clothes apart. Wu Chen's well-proportioned body was revealed. Eli was stunned by Wu Chen's appearance. You look skinny and weak, but your body is amazing." Ariella looked at Dustless's abdomen with infatuation, nodding her head in praise as she looked at the 8-pack abs on Dustless's abdomen. These abs seemed to have been purposely made, and were embedded on Dustless's body, not too big nor too small, very standard. "Although you're young, your heart is actually very barbaric." Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In his memory, the number of times a woman tore his clothes apart could be counted on one hand. Moreover, this was obviously a F***king child, not a woman. Here's the next part. Ariella's pair of beautiful eyes swept across Dustless's lower body, and her hands gradually moved over. "Let's stop here." Dustless's cold voice sounded, and Ariella laughed coldly, not taking it seriously. "You're already drugged, and you're still trying to act tough?" Therefore, without any hesitation, her two small hands continued to move towards Dustless's waist. Because he was wearing sweatpants, as long as she gently untied the belt around his waist, his pants could be taken off. But bang! Suddenly, A huge force landed on Ariella's shoulder, and she violently spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body lying on Dustless's body also flew backwards. You didn't listen to me, you ungrateful woman. Dustless suddenly stood up. His gaze was stern, and his expression was resolute. He didn't look like he was drugged at all. He turned around and walked towards the wardrobe in the other bedroom. It seemed like he was going to change his clothes. How is this possible? Ariella wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and looked at Dustless, who was walking as if he was flying. She was completely stunned. Could it be that this guy was faking it all along? Ariella, what did you do to Master Dustless? At the same time, Elise also rushed in, her beautiful eyes filled with anger. This friend of hers, whom she trusted, actually dared to lay her hands on Dustless? Ariella's face twitched, as if she couldn't explain, so she shut her mouth. There was no point in explaining to Elise, as she was Dustless's errand boy. I say, little girl, how about we make a deal? In just a few seconds, Wu Chen changed into a new shirt and held a goblet in his hand. There was a glass of juice in it. A deal. Ariella, who was originally in despair, was reinvigorated when she heard these two words. She asked, what kind of deal? You go and tell those people from Nightfall that we've got what we want. Wu Chen's face was ferocious. He said with a murderous look, then I'll kill them. You want me to be a traitor? Ariella's expression was extremely ugly. Nightfall's method of dealing with traitors was quite cruel. That's right. Dustless nodded and said expressionlessly, you can refuse, but let me tell you, if you refuse, you will die immediately. If you're willing to listen to me, I can guarantee your life. Ariella's expression was difficult, and she was hesitant. She didn't want to die, and at the same time, she didn't want to be a traitor. However, after thinking about it, it seemed that there was no plan that could satisfy both sides. If she refused, Dustless would die immediately. If she became a traitor, although she would be on Nightfall's kill list, she would also be protected by Dustless, so… Master Dustless. After thinking for a while, Ariella knelt on one knee without hesitation to show her loyalty. Chapter 39. Not bad. Only a woman like her would be likable. Seeing this, Dustless smiled proudly and gave her an admiring look. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Although he was forced to do this, Dustless only cared about the end result. He did not care about the process. To be able to force a mortal enemy to become his follower, wasn't that something to be proud of? You go and inform those guys in Knifling that they'll come to make a deal in 3 days. Let me see which idiot is coming to die. Dustless said gloomily. His eyes were flashing with scarlet light. When he spoke, the air was filled with the thick smell of blood. I understand. Alila nodded with a pale face. Her body was trembling unnaturally. Even if he did not deliberately target her, Alila's body was still instinctively afraid. This was an innate fear, just like the invisible restraint of higher life forms towards lower life forms. There was always a lingering fear. Now she finally understood Dustless's strength. He was just playing with her. If he really wanted to kill her, he would not even have to lift a finger. He could kill her with just a thought. All right, you may leave. Dustless's expression returned to normal, and his tone was gentle. Although he had killed countless people, Dustless had always used a combination of kindness and power to deal with his own people. When it was time to be tough, he would be tough. And when it was time to be gentle, he would use gentle means. Alila did not dare to stay any longer. She bowed deeply and left quietly with a fearful expression. Master Dustless, I did not expect this to happen. It's all my fault. I'm very sorry. Elise lowered her head in shame. Although Dustless was fine, she was the one who introduced Alila. You did not do anything wrong. After all, it's hard to tell what's in a person's heart. Just be more careful in the future. Dustless sat on the sofa and ate his snack seriously. Even though Elise's strength had been constantly improving recently, her mind had not changed. She was still as pure and naive as before. However, this was not her fault. This child was still young, lacked experience, and had not experienced any great storms. Elise, who was living in a greenhouse, always lacked the courage to deal with danger alone. Besides, Changing the topic, Dustless smiled and said, instigating a spy can also be considered a gain. The merits offset the demerits. I still think I'm in the wrong. I'll only feel better if you punish me. Elise lowered her head and spoke in a very soft and honest tone. You're quite honest. Dustless smiled and shook his head to refuse. In fact, he was quite satisfied with Elise. There was no perfect person in this world. In the past, Dustless's underlings were much more outstanding than Elise, but none of them could make him worry. Some of them even betrayed him. But I've already said, your merits and demerits offset. If there's a next time, I'll really punish you. Dustless deliberately made a very scary expression. No way. Who would have thought that Elise would reject him in a serious manner? She emphasized in a serious tone. As Lord Wuchen's first servant, I have to set an example. I don't want Keely and Allegra to try to take advantage of my feelings when they make a mistake. This time, it was Dustless's turn to be surprised. He didn't expect this girl to think so far ahead. She even included Allegra and Keely in the equation. However, Dustless still had no intention of punishing Elise. Usually his so-called punishment was to kill. We'll talk about the punishment later. Dustless casually replied. He then lowered his head and continued to eat his snacks. However, it was at this moment that Elise suddenly leaned over with a red face. This confused Dustless. What's wrong with this girl? A woman's mind is really hard to predict. I know what Lord Dustless likes. Do you want to try? Elise's voice was so weak that it was almost inaudible. There was even a faint feeling that she found it difficult to speak. It seemed like she was embarrassed. That's interesting. I don't even know what I like. What would you know? Tell me. Dustless looked at Elise with interest. Of course I know. Elise's face was red with excitement. It seemed that neither Keely nor Allegra had noticed Dustless's hobbies. Elise was the only exception. These days, Lord Dustless has a favorite activity. Which activity? Hearing this, Dustless was confused. He lowered his head and thought for a while. However, he still didn't understand. His eyebrows furrowed, and he was even more confused. Frankly speaking, the only thing that interested him was the most powerful person in the world. However, the so-called powerful people in this world were so weak that he could kill the most powerful person with a single breath. Therefore, Dustless was looking forward to what interest Elise was talking about. Could it be that he really did have a unique hobby? Just as Dustless was thinking hard, Elise suddenly turned her back to him. Her beautiful eyes were watery, and her head was almost buried in her cleavage. Her small hands moved down slightly and landed on the corner of her skirt. It was as if she had touched the most private part of her body. Elise's face was covered with a sickly blush. I'm going to start. Elise's words attracted Dustless's attention. The moment Dustless looked over and saw the girl's movements, his expression turned stiff. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. Elise, this little girl, actually slowly lifted her skirt. A scene that could make a man's blood boil appeared in front of him. Her light pink breasts and her perfectly round breasts. The skin on both sides of her breasts was as clear as snow, and the surface seemed to be covered with a faint layer of light. It was a dazzling sight. Come on. Those 3 simple words seemed to have used up all of Elise's strength. She gritted her teeth, and her face was red. I am embarrassed too, but I can't help it. Lord Dustless likes this. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless hurriedly coughed. Speechless, he asked, when did I say that I like this? I saw it all. Elise couldn't even speak normally. She said in an extremely soft voice. When Keely and Allegra did something wrong, Lord Dustless punished them like this. F***ck. Dustless wanted to cry, but no tears came out. This time, he really felt like jumping into the Yellow River would never be able to clear his name. He did this as a warning. Otherwise, he would kill them directly. Chapter 40. After all, Yang Xinya was already dead. No matter how much Dustless hated this kid, he wouldn't stoop to the level of a dead person. So, what do you plan to do next? Dustless looked at Ing Man's real name. He definitely had to leave. Then, this child would become the new king of the human race. In a world without him and Yang Xinya, No one could stop Ingman real name's footsteps. Ingman real name choked when she heard this. She wasn't as happy as she had imagined. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Yang Xinya was already dead. What should she do? The most pitiful thing is actually people like you, right? Dustless's tone was filled with pity. Previously, Ingman real name relied on hatred to survive. Now that the main culprit, Yang Xinya, was dead, she seemed to have lost the meaning of living. I'll take my leave. Have fun. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense. He whistled and walked away leisurely. With your current ability, it shouldn't be a problem for you to dominate the world. I'm tired of playing. I'll leave this world to you to continue wreaking havoc. In his words, Dustless treated the future of the entire human race as a game. In fact, he was such a selfish person. He only had himself in his eyes. If you wanted him to think for others, the sun would rise from the west. Please guide me. Ingman real name immediately blocked Dustless's path and knelt down sincerely. I've offended you in the past. I hope you can forgive me. Guide you? Dustless opened his mouth when he heard this. He stared at Ingman real name in shock, as if he had seen a new continent. This woman changed so quickly. Didn't she want to kill him when she met him previously? Now she needed him to guide her. I'm not interested. Dustless replied expressionlessly. This sentence made Ingman real name's confused gaze even more desperate. He said frankly, I'm a very selfish person. In this world, I only help two kinds of people, my women and my little brother. You're neither of them. What reason do I have to help you? God loved the world. Perhaps God was really so great. However, there was a condition. You had to believe in him sincerely. Otherwise, would God save you? Absolutely not. Therefore, there was no free lunch in this world. I am willing to follow you. Ingman real name looked up at Dustless, her beautiful eyes glowing with a bright light, as bright and firm as diamonds. What a foolish woman. Dustless couldn't be bothered to say more. His eyes blinked, and his lips moved slightly. He wanted to say something but stopped. In fact, he roughly understood what Ingman's real name was thinking. She probably wanted to find a way to resurrect Ingmanji from him. In fact, Dustless really wanted to ask if it was really worth it. Just for a dead person. You've been poisoned with feelings. Dustless sighed and then said coldly, since you've chosen to follow me, don't regret it. After that, he resolutely turned around and left. Ingman real name couldn't help but be overjoyed when she heard this. She quickly wiped the starlight surging from the corner of her eyes, and immediately followed. Since Dustless was able to revive her, then reviving Ingmanji shouldn't be too difficult. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Yang Xinya was killed by Dustless, and GHQ, which was originally entrenched in Japan, also collapsed. At present, the country was controlled by the imperial household. Although the imperial household was not an outstanding politician, he had some means to manage everything in an orderly manner. The country was gradually on the right track. However, because of the previous war, most of Japan had been turned into ruins. Currently, they were in the midst of intense reconstruction, which required a lot of funds. Therefore, the process was very slow. It would probably take decades to recover. Even so, the imperial household was very satisfied. At least they had taken back the ruling power, and everything would slowly get better. In a certain villa of the imperial household, Dustless did not leave for the time being. He still lived a life of debauchery and drunkenness. During this period, he also picked the delicate flower Irisa. After all, she was sent to his door, and Dustless couldn't refuse her kindness. It would be a waste if he didn't take it, right? In the garden where hundreds of flowers were blooming, the spring was in full bloom. Green and pink intertwined in the sea of flowers. The scenery was too beautiful to behold. In a pavilion, Wu Chun was leisurely lying on a couch. His eyes were half closed and he was snoring lightly. He seemed to be asleep. There was also a figure standing beside him, Asamiya Iase. Her back was straight, and she was always on guard like a bodyguard. Ta-ta-ta-ta. Not long after, there was a burst of messy footsteps. Dustless opened his eyes and looked at Asamiya Iase with dissatisfaction. Why didn't you stop them? Can I stop them? Asamiya Iase shrugged, showing a helpless expression. Looking up, The people who were coming were Imperial Household Sarisa and others. Dustless-sama, I heard that you are leaving? Imperial Household Sarisa was the first to rush over, followed by Sakura, Chunxia, Yatu and Inori, including Sakura's real name and others. Among them, the most nervous were Sakura, Chunxia, and Imperial Household Sarisa. What shouldn't have happened had happened. They were already Dustless's people. Even if they were dissatisfied, they could only follow him. For this world, I was originally a passerby, and I will naturally leave at the end of the trip. Dustless told the truth, and at the same time, his eyes fell on Sakura's real name, and asked doubtfully, I said before you are free. Dustless agreed to the request of Sakura's real name, and resurrected Sakura Manji. He didn't embarrass Sakura's real name, and gave her freedom very generously, but this child came back. It was really strange. In fact, after the resurrection, Sakura Manji was a bit strange and panicked. After seeing Sakura's real name, she was still nervous and scared. She probably subconsciously thought that this sister was a monster. She was afraid that she couldn't avoid it. This made Sakura's real name suffer a blow. Even though she always wanted to take care of Sakura Manji, her brother, he was always afraid of her. Sakura's real name smiled bitterly and explained, I will continue to follow Dustless-sama. For Sakura, I am a nightmare-like existence. It is enough for him to live happily, and I, as his sister, will disappear from his sight forever. You are really carefree, worthy of praise. You have made progress in your thinking. Dustless showed a rare look of appreciation. Love was not simply possession. As long as the other party was happy, it was enough. Sakura's real name seemed to be really relieved now. What about you guys? Dustless's eyes swept over them one by one, and Inori nodded without hesitation. It seemed that because he created this new body for her, she was extremely dependent on Dustless, and probably already regarded him as a father. I'll suffer a little and walk with you. Blackbird still had the same carefree look on her face. She crossed her arms in a very proud manner. Even if I stay, you will forcibly drag me away, right? Sakura Manji and Chunxia already understood Dustless's character. This guy would never give up on someone who had slept with him. In Dustless's words, leave her alone? What a joke. What if she was cuckolded? Then let's run. Dustless smiled faintly, and snapped his fingers. The sky above burst open, revealing a huge door, and a golden halo shot out and swallowed them. Chapter 41. After all, Zierda was still a sinner through and through. She could still move freely, but she was still a sinner. In the original work, in order to get rid of her punishment, Shier had even secretly contacted Tian Wuyao. The deal was that after Tian Wuyao became the champion of the Lion Heron Star Martial Arts Festival, her punishment would be lifted, and Shier would help Tian Wuyao recover her consciousness. Unfortunately, she didn't have the chance this time. Uffed! The light condensed on Dustless's fingertip shot out again, and easily penetrated Zierda's knee. She immediately screamed, Sir, I've already told you everything. Why are you still targeting me like this? Zierda endured the pain and asked. Although her tone was gentle and respectful, and her attitude was respectful to Dustless, there was still hatred in the depths of her eyes. It was fine if this kind of person was unknown in the future, but once she rose to the top, she would definitely not let Dustless off so easily in the future. Therefore, this woman must die. I'm really sorry. Thank you for your information, but you must die. Dustless's thumb flashed again, and aimed at Zierda's head. The girl was startled. Then, her expression looked as if she was possessed by an evil spirit. She cursed with a sinister expression. Damn scum, I curse you. Uffed. Before she could finish her sentence, the light beam swept out like a divine sword. Zierda's head exploded on the spot, and bright red brain matter splattered all over the ground. Dustless didn't feel guilty about killing this woman. Who knew how many crazy scientists like Zierda had died under her hands? It was best if she died. Alphalia was a living example. Although she had miraculously survived, and became one of the strongest witches in history, the price she had to pay was that she had lost her humanity forever. She had probably been destroyed by Hilda, and this time, he would take revenge for her. Before leaving, Dustless burned down this evil laboratory, including some of the human materials. All of them were buried in the sea of fire. This could be considered as helping them escape. By the time Dustless returned, today's competition had already ended. The students of the Starguide Academy were not very lucky. Their opponents were extremely powerful. Dao Ting Qiren and Sha Gong Yi were scared but not in any danger. As for the others, they were sadly eliminated. For example, Lei Shida was defeated as soon as he appeared. By the time they returned to the Star Director Academy in the evening, Elena had already recovered and could walk around safely. Sir, if you have any tasks for me, feel free to tell me. Elena respected Dustless as if he was her second parent. If it wasn't for him, the two sisters might have died without a complete corpse. You just need to rest. Dustless waved his hand. He didn't really care. He didn't have anything important to give to Elena. But I'm not used to always cheating you for food and drinks. Elena looked at Dustless with a troubled expression. You're quite an honest person. Wu Chen looked at Elena strangely. This woman trusted him so much that she would even do it if he asked her to die. But if you really want to do it, I'll give you a task. Dustless narrowed his eyes, shooting out a ruthless light, and said, in case something uncontrollable happens, you go and kill the entire Sky Miss Ling Do family. Understood. Elena nodded without hesitation, and then quietly left. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. It was time for Dustless to participate in the second round of the Star Phoenix Martial Festival. Unfortunately, his opponent was World Dragon 7th Academy. One of them was called Li Xinyan, ranked 9th in World Dragon 7th Academy, and her sister was called Li Shenhua. I heard you defeated that pair of trash yesterday. Looks like you're not bad. But don't think you can defeat us siblings today. Li Xinyan's eyes were unruly as she looked at Dustless and Yuli's with a gloomy face. In the end, it's just good luck. Li Shenhua also had a disdainful attitude. Did these two idiots eat gunpowder or something? Who are they venting their anger at? Dustless was secretly depressed. He and Yuli seemed to have never offended these two Chinibu patients. Those two fellows were originally our prey. Since you two killed them, we'll start with you too. Li Xinyan's eyes were filled with hostility. Even though they were all from the same school, he and Li Shenhua were from the water faction, while Song Ran and Luo Kunzhen were from the wood faction. The two factions were like fire and water, and were completely hostile to each other. Originally, Li Xinyan and Li Shenhua wanted to take care of those two from the wood faction, and take the opportunity to attack Fan Xinglu's power. But the plan could not keep up with the changes. Song Ran and Luo Kunzhen were defeated the moment they entered the arena. They were beaten up by Dustless and Yuli's, which naturally disrupted the siblings' plan. Therefore, Dustless and Yuli's were hated by the siblings. Even if you're being unreasonable, you should know when to stop. World Dragon Academy having students like you is simply a disgrace. Yuli said in annoyance. The siblings' eyes were very annoying, as if they were looking at insects. Hee. I hope you two can still be so arrogant later. I won't let you leave so easily. I'll have to torture you. Li Xinyan's face was distorted, and Li Shenhua also revealed a sick smile. Likewise, I also have the same plan. Dustless responded, and his face was brewing murderous intent. These two little perverts had personality defects, and their personalities were similar to sadomasochism. In the original work, they tortured Yuli so much that she almost lost consciousness. Therefore, Dustless also hated these two siblings, and took the opportunity to cripple them. Chapter 42. This wave of framing was really powerful and extraordinary. Even Dustless couldn't find fault with it. Perhaps even Xiao Zhiwu thought that he was the mastermind behind it. Do you agree or not? Mingwu leaned over and naturally laid beside Dustless. She purposely opened her collar and exposed her snow-white skin. If you agree, there will be a reward. Mingwu blinked her seductive eyes. Her burning gaze almost melted Dustless. Anyone who was looked at by her would feel their heart racing and their blood boiling. Dustless did not fall for it. He raised his hand and rubbed the girl's head. All right, you can go back. You just want to speed up your sister's IS construction project. right? I'll just give the order. This was not a big deal. It was just a matter of Dustless's words. I knew you're the best. Hearing this, Mingwu smiled and blushed. She took the initiative to leave a kiss mark on the right side of Dustless's face. Hehe. If there are any women looking for trouble with you in the future, just leave it to me. I'm the best at solving girls' problems. Mingwu clenched her fist to show off to Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless rolled his eyes. He did not even need to think about it. This girl must have done something bad to someone else, and then pushed the blame onto him. She even said that it was his order. Then I'll go back. After achieving her goal, Mingwu skipped away. I'll go to Mingwu's place to have a look. It would be best if I could explain it to her. But according to my estimation, that kid probably won't listen. Dustless looked at Mingwu's back and also got up to leave. It would have been fine if she had just casually beaten up Xiaojiwu. The key point was that Mingwu even stripped her naked in front of everyone. How could a girl like Mingwu endure this? In front of Xiaojiwu's dorm, Dustless pressed the doorbell. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless coughed twice and put on a selfless expression. Mingwu, I'm sorry about what happened before. I'm here to look for you. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dustless's voice hadn't even fallen when an ear-piercing sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Glancing sideways, he saw countless fiery lights flashing in his direction. Missiles? That's interesting. Dustless narrowed his eyes. His right eye suddenly turned into a mysterious blue and white eye, allowing him to see everything tens of kilometers away. Even a fly 10 kilometers away could be seen clearly. From this, one could see how terrifying and powerful the Tensigan was. In the sky 10 kilometers away, a silver-white IS stood in the sky. Its body was covered in black smoke. Clearly, it was this mysterious IS that launched the missiles. Bang, 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 bang. The missile exploded before it even reached them. The guards of the IS Academy were not bad. It's probably the Silver Gospel. Dustless retracted his gaze. After some observation, he realized that it was an unmanned AI machine. Someone was controlling it from behind the scenes. Despicable bastard, how dare you appear in front of me? The door suddenly opened, revealing a fierce face. Who else could it be but Shinesheim? Still so fierce. It seems that you are not injured. You are very energetic. Wu Chun heaved a sigh of relief and said with a faint smile, Your sister has planned a performance for you to debut. Dustless looked at the horizon in the distance. His tone became meaningful. Although he only observed for a dozen seconds, Dustless could see that the Silver Gospel that attacked the IS Academy was quite good. There were as many as 4 propulsion devices behind it. The normal IS only had 2. There was also a huge gap between the 3rd generation IS and the mecha and weapons. It probably adopted some 4th generation IS technology. Other than Shinesheim, who else could create an IS that transcends generations? She probably wanted to use this opportunity to show the superiority of Red Toon to the world. However, I overestimated your strength. Looking at the Silver Gospel in the distance, it was not that Dustless didn't believe in Shinesheim. This kid just got Red Toon not long ago, and didn't have much time to train. Secondly, this IS was obviously modified. Some of the technology was upgraded. It had the foundation of the 4th generation IS, and was probably several times more powerful than the original Silver Gospel. If Shinesheim wanted to deal with it alone, it would be impossible. Shinesheim's expression was also a bit hesitant. She wanted to back out. After being beaten up by Shinesheim, she realized that she was pitifully weak and began to question her own ability. If I go, I will only embarrass my sister and disappoint her. Shinesheim bit her cracked lips as blood slowly flowed out. She was unwilling to give up. With your current strength, you will be beaten if you go. Dustless nodded in agreement and then said slowly, I remember when I asked you to follow me you refused. Who can you blame? If you follow me, you have seen Cecilia's improvement, right? Although Shinesheim was currently the strongest person in the IS Academy, according to Dustless's prediction, once Cecilia and Shinesheim fought, she, as the student council president, would lose. It was almost certain that there would be no accidents. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, explosions occurred in other directions of the IS Academy. Suffocating black smoke filled the air as giant fireballs appeared in the air. The smoke of war spread across the entire IS Academy. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Unknown IS appeared one after another like ghosts and attacked the school without restraint. They didn't even let the students go. This is all my sister's doing? Shinasheim clenched her fist in disbelief. What was the difference between this behavior and terrorists? Chapter 43. Leave her to me. Ulysses' beautiful eyes glowed with a scorching light. Li Shenhua treated her as prey, but she didn't know that Ulysses also treated Li Shenhua the same way. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In front of Dustless, a large number of paper talismans shot towards him. All of them were filled with the words urgent as the law order. Die, you arrogant fellow! Li Shenyan roared. His hands suddenly formed a hand shadow as he shouted. Explode! Boom boom boom! The explosion talismans around Dustless exploded at the same time, fusing into a ferocious fireball that burned crazily on his body. Crackling sounds continuously came from it, as if a person was being burned. Is this guy really a Taoist? Why does he feel like a ninja? Dustless, who was in the fireball, slowly walked forward. As for the burning sea of fire around him, he ignored it. First, it was the clone technique, and then this kind of explosive talisman. No matter how one looked at it, it all looked like something a ninja would use. This brat, even if he doesn't die, he will shed a layer of skin. What? The smile on Li Xinyan's face suddenly froze, and she couldn't help but open her eyes wide. Dustless walked out of the fire with a relaxed expression. His expression was normal, and there were no signs of him being burned. Damn it, what kind of monster is this guy? Why didn't he burn? Li Xinyan's face was ashen, but the audience outside burst into an earth-shattering sound. So powerful. I think that Li Xinyan is finished. That's right, he will definitely lose. After fighting for so long, he didn't even touch a hair of his opponent. How can he participate in the Phoenix Star martial arts ceremony? With this kind of standard, I think he's just here to be funny. The audience outside were discussing and snorting at Li Xinyan. It was too embarrassing. She had created such a mess, but in the end, she didn't even touch the body of her opponent. You bastard, just you wait. I'll teach you a lesson soon. Hearing the ear-piercing ridicule, Li Xinyan's resentment towards Dustless deepened. Has this brat's head been squeezed by the door? What does it have to do with me if the audience outside is following suit? Looking at this kid's vicious expression, Dustless was also speechless. This kid's brain must have been hit with iron. You don't seem to have any more tricks up your sleeve. It's my turn now. Dustless gazed at the clones of Li Xinyan, formed a hand seal, and spat out a sea of fire from his mouth. Fire style. Grand fire annihilation. Boom boom boom. Dustless spat out a vast sea of fire from his mouth. It was like a tsunami rolling out. Everywhere it went, not even a blade of grass grew. Even the ground was scorched black. Bang bang bang. Those invisible explosive talismans all exploded, blowing the sea of fire into pieces. Like scattered raindrops, they sprinkled to every corner, and the sky was raining fire. Boom boom boom. However, it was useless. The sea of fire was too powerful and continuous. Even though the first wave was blasted into smithereens, the second wave, which was even more vast, continued to crush Li Xinyan. Damn it! Those clones were forced into a desperate situation. Their eye sockets were about to burst. Although the competition area wasn't small, the sea of fire was too big. They were all forced into a corner. Boom boom boom. The flames swept out with unstoppable force. The ground was scorched black, and those clones were turned into nothingness. You are the only one left, brat. Dustless glanced at Li Xinyan, who was the only one left. No matter how many clones you have or how many explosive talismans you have, it is all a matter of fire. Buzz buzz buzz. Immediately after, Dustless lifted his right leg. Light beams were wrapped around it. He aimed at Li Xinyan's location and threw a kick. Light speed kick. Boom boom boom. The light beams landed on Li Xinyan's location and exploded like a time bomb. Tumbling flames and mushroom clouds burned fiercely. That brat didn't even have a corpse left. It seems like it is over. Dustless put his hands in his pockets and said indifferently, "This boring competition is finally over." "It is finally over?" A sinister voice that sounded like a venomous snake came from behind. Li Xinyan appeared like a ghost again. He stuck out his disgusting tongue and said with a sinister smile, "I'm sorry. Those that were killed by you were actually clones. Go to hell." At the same time, Li Xinyan threw out countless explosive talismans and stuck them tightly to Dustless's body. "Is that so? Then you are really smart." Dustless smiled and praised. Even though his entire body was covered by the explosive talismans, his expression didn't change. His eyes were still as calm as an ancient well. "This time, I will blow you up until you lose consciousness." Li Xinyan roared. He then shouted, "Explode!" Boom, boom, boom. Thousands of explosive talismans exploded at the same time. The momentum was shocking. Dustless's body immediately burned and turned into a terrifying flaming man. The power released from the explosion was extremely powerful. The ground under Dustless's feet was instantly blown into a deep pit. No matter who it was, they would die without a doubt under such terrifying heat. "Ha ha ha ha, you should be done for now. Not only will I eliminate you, but I will also roast you." Li Xinyan laughed maniacally. His eyes were filled with madness and had turned blood red. "Commentator, are you an idiot? Why aren't you announcing the winner?" Li Xinyan roared at the commentator after laughing proudly for more than 10 seconds. "I'm really sorry. The school emblem didn't break, and I didn't lose consciousness. There will definitely be no winner." A deathly stifling voice resounded behind her. Li Xinyan suddenly quivered and hurriedly turned around to take a look. To her astonishment, it was Wu Chun who was smiling behind her. "Damn it!" Li Xinyan rubbed his eyes angrily and flew into a rage. After confirming that it was Dustless, he scolded, "You should have been burned into a cripple by me. Do you think you are the only one who knows how to clone? Idiot! The one that was destroyed by you earlier was also my clone." Dustless sneered. Soon after, his eyes turned cold. A radiance flashed in his hand as he slashed at Li Xinyan. Eft! A bloody wound appeared on Li Xinyan's chest. Blood spurted out and he lost consciousness. Li Xinyan has lost consciousness. Starguide Academy's Dustless wins. A few seconds after Li Xinyan collapsed, the commentator's voice echoed in everyone's ears. Chapter 44. What's the matter? Atlanta looked at her bewildered look and frowned. Because not only Fiore, but even Dustless's expression was extremely strange at the moment, revealing a rare trace of shock. "I'm also very surprised. Why would a dead person suddenly resurrect? That guy was indeed killed by me. I can be 100% sure, but now, he's resurrected." Dustless was also full of doubts. Following his line of sight, he saw Archer standing on the ruined castle. Yes, it was the Black Archer who was previously obliterated by Dustless. In fact, not to mention Fiore, even Dustless himself was dumbfounded. He was sure that he killed Archer. But what the hell is going on? Is he a corpse or a living person? Whoosh! Once again, the sound of arrows piercing through the air could be heard. Raising his head, he saw a large number of arrows flying towards him. "Come here!" Dustless shouted at Atlanta, and the chick immediately ran over. "Shinra Tensei!" Bang! Transparent ripples of power whistled, and the fatal arrows were all knocked away or broken. Archer couldn't break through this tyrannical repulsion at all. This guy seems to be wrong. Dustless glanced at Fiore, and his heart was even more puzzled. There was no doubt that the Black Archer's host was Fiore, but the wave of arrow attack just now clearly covered Fiore. But it also wanted to kill the host? This didn't seem like Archer's style. Why Archer? Fiore obviously also saw the problem and asked absent-mindedly. She couldn't believe it because she and Archer didn't have a simple contractual relationship. Sometimes he was a teacher and a friend. Even without the restrictions of the contract, Archer couldn't do anything to her. But the reality was like a loud slap, slapping her in the face, and her empty eyes almost lost herself. "Unfortunately, my master is no longer you, Fiore." Archer's tone was full of deep helplessness and complexity. It could be seen that this was something he couldn't change. What a joke! Dustless sneered and said disdainfully. How long has it been since I killed you? In such a short period of time. Not only did you revive, you even found a new host? Atlanta and Fiore both nodded in agreement. This was too unusual. Of course not under normal circumstances, but Black Archer paused for a moment as he panted. It could be seen that he was also very shocked by this matter. After calming himself down a little, he slowly said, But with the help of the Holy Grail, wouldn't it be enough? That Sieg made a wish on the Holy Grail? Dustless's face also revealed a look of surprise. His previous doubts were quickly swept away. If it was the Holy Grail, then it was indeed not a big problem. In the eyes of many, it was an omnipotent wishing machine that could do anything. I'm really surprised. That Sieg actually made a wish to the Holy Grail. But why did he revive you? Are you very strong? Don't tease me. Dustless was still full of doubts. He frowned and said, Even if that guy resurrected you for some reason, there is no reason for him to kill me. Could it be? Dustless suddenly thought of a figure in his mind. Was it because of the previous Black Rider Astolfo? After thinking about it for a while, this was the most likely possibility. For Sieg, Astolfo was his savior. Not only did he let that kid go, but he even gave Sieg the Holy Grail. This kind of great favor, Sieg estimated that he would never be able to repay it all in his life. But later, Dustless killed the Black Rider. Well, to be exact, it was not Dustless who did it, but Atlanta. Of course, the most important thing was that Astolfo did not use his strength at all. He was completely thinking of suicide at that time. It's because of the rider that Sieg hates you. Black Archer once again raised his bow and aimed at Dustless. But even if that's the case, that guy relied on the Holy Grail to resurrect you. Can he kill me? Isn't this idea too ridiculous? If I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time, a third time, or even 100 times. Dustless announced expressionlessly. His voice was exceptionally loud. No, that's not my initial wish. Black Archer looked at Dustless with a gloomy expression. After a moment of silence, he said, All this time, I thought that the Holy Grail was omnipotent. But until the incident with Sieg, I realized that I was wrong. Oh, that kid's wish couldn't be fulfilled? Dustless raised his eyebrows and asked in surprise. Yes. Black Archer nodded heavily. He looked at Dustless with a serious expression. Sieg's initial wish was for the Holy Grail to kill you. But the Holy Grail couldn't do that. In the end, his wish changed. He resurrected several powerful heroic spirits to kill you. And I'm just one of them. Is that guy crazy? Fiore and Atlanta both exclaimed. They couldn't understand Sieg. Why did he have to go through so much trouble? Since he liked the Black Rider so much, why didn't he just use the Holy Grail to resurrect him? Why did he have to make such a cruel wish? You can play like this. Dustless rubbed his nose, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Is this considered cheating? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 45. Do you know your crime? After examining Guillen for a moment, Veronica said coldly. Sylvia was stunned, thinking that she had misheard. She asked with a trembling mouth, Sister Veronica, are you serious? Guillen, he might have been misled too. No, this is my choice. The simple-minded Guillen decisively ignored Sylvia's good intentions. Good, very good. Veronica's voice was full of killing intent. Sylvia's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. She begged Dustless to give her face in hopes that Veronica would be merciful. She simply thought that this sister would be merciful. Who would have thought? You have brought this upon yourself. This is a capital offense. Veronica's tone was unshakable. She said in a deep voice, Guillen, as my confidant, did not play an exemplary role. Instead, he secretly contacted the enemy. His crime is punishable by death, but you have been with me for many years. Even if you have not made any contributions, you have worked hard. Take your own life as an apology. Veronica's voice was incomparably cold. Just as Dustless had predicted, Guillen would not be able to escape death no matter what. However, taking his own life was much more dignified than being executed. Take care of yourself from now on. It's getting late. Goodbye. Dustless only needed to hear the result. He stretched and got up to leave, leaving everyone with a view of his back. You can't be serious, right? Yak's mouth was wide open. She couldn't believe it even if she was beaten to death. Isn't this guy too cold? He killed him just like that. Even if it was a dog, after following its master for several years, they would have built a deep relationship with each other. Not to mention Gulian. He had contributed to Veronica's career and defeated many enemies. Now he had fallen to the end of taking his own life. In the evening, the news of Princess Veronica's confidant, Gulian, taking his own life spread. The entire Ansari Dragon Knight Academy was caught in the whirlpool of public opinion. No one knew the specific reason, but it could be considered as saving Gulian some face. Meow meow meow. In the quiet room, there was a soft moan. Dustless, who was resting on the sofa, suddenly opened his eyes. What kind of show is this? Dustless frowned as he stared at the beautiful woman sitting on top of him, ignoring the saliva-inducing curves. It's too much to disturb someone's rest. The person who came into view had exquisite facial features and was extremely beautiful. She had a figure and a face and long legs. She was impeccable in all aspects, and she even knew how to act cute. She was unusually tall and looked somewhat similar to Yak. This was not the first time they had met the person sitting on Dustless's waist. Her name was Nabi. Ah, what a cold attitude. Nabi pouted angrily, but Dustless did not even look at her. This guy was actually Aika's memory clone. He seemed to have some special feelings for Dustless and would often come out to pester him. If you have something to say, just say it. Dustless looked at Nabi and closed his eyes again. Nabi looked deeply at Dustless. After a long time, she sighed and said unhappily, I'm afraid this is the last time I come out to harass you. Goodbye forever. As she spoke, tears fell from Nabi's eyes in disbelief. She seemed particularly sad and reluctant. Are you starting to put on a sad show? Seeing this, Dustless was speechless. He helplessly patted the girl's head. Can't you be a little more obedient? Don't play these little games all day. You're Aiko after 5 years. 5 years later, she's still so childish. I'm telling the truth. Nabi squinted her eyes and enjoyed it for a moment. Then, she pushed away Dustless's palm on her head and emphasized, I've decided to fuse with Aiko. They were originally the same person, so the fusion was naturally fate. Hearing this, Dustless's calm eyes rippled slightly. His bored eyes began to condense and emit bursts of light. Fusion. That's a pity. Aiko will probably reject it. There was suddenly another person in her body. Although the initiative and control of the body, including the thoughts, were still with Aiko, no one would be able to accept such a thing, right? You're right. When we were in the dragon workshop, I talked to her about a similar topic, but Aiko rejected it. Nabi didn't mince her words. There was no need to hide this kind of thing. Even if Aiko rejected it, she would still forcibly fuse with Aiko, because there were too many implications involved. It was even closely related to the future of the dragon race. What if I don't agree? Dustless asked. This seems to be between me and Aiko. You don't have the right to interfere. Even though she already knew that Dustless was overbearing and unreasonable, Nabi still retorted unhappily when she saw his condescending gaze. This has a lot to do with me. Don't forget. Aiko was born from absorbing my power. To a certain extent, she's my child. Now that you're fusing with her, don't you know how I feel as a father? Dustless's expression was sharp, and his eyes were sharp. He didn't seem to be joking. You're Aiko's father? Hearing this, Nabi's lips curled into a mischievous smile. Her body wrapped around Dustless like a snake, and she asked in a soft and coquettish tone, what kind of father would do such a thing to his daughter? You insatiable brat, who gave you the courage? Dustless's mouth twitched. His face darkened as he asked, Are you secretly observing me? No, I'm just observing Aiko. Nabi shrugged, as if it had nothing to do with her. As for what kind of indescribable thing it was, looking at Dustless's angry and somewhat awkward expression, she knew it wasn't anything good. Those clear eyes seemed to be able to speak. Not only Fiore, but even Dustless, an outsider, understood the deep meaning of Karen's words. If Sharon could survive, the two of them would become close friends in the future. It's a pity that the world is so cruel. 9 out of 10 things are not satisfactory. Dustless's compassion quickly disappeared. The void flash in his hand was thrown out in a straight line, and the archer also shot out a dense number of arrows. Void flash. At this moment, Fiore could no longer hold back the tears in her eyes, and they burst out. Boom, boom, boom. Void flash finally exploded on the archer's body. He disappeared on the spot, and the space where he was also blasted into a large hole. He was instantly killed by an overwhelming force. In case Sieg can't find us for revenge, let's stay here, Atlanta. While speaking, Dustless had already used wood release to build some houses. Understood. Atlanta nodded obediently, then quietly walked to Dustless's side, and asked in a soft voice, Lord Dustless, this child is quite pitiful. Her family is dead, and she is the only one left. Why don't you take her in? Atlanta was a kind-hearted person, and she sympathized with Fiore's experience. If she can accept it, I don't mind. Dustless waved his hand, and he didn't care about this kind of thing at all. With light steps, Dustless walked into the wooden house to rest. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, a few hours had passed. The sky gradually darkened, and soon it was night. The night was full, and the stars hanging high in the night sky were glowing. In this hot summer, even at night, it was as stuffy as being in a steamer. A few gusts of wind swept across the grassy plain, blowing on people's faces, and it was particularly comfortable. Why did this happen? Didn't I die? How did I suddenly come back to life? Or is everything that happened in front of me just a dream? Under the lush green tree, a golden-haired girl wearing medieval clothes and armor muttered to herself in a daze. She held a flag in her hand, which was painted with exquisite patterns that swayed in the night wind. The girl's beautiful eyes, which had been puzzled for a long time, suddenly lit up. Could it be that all of this is Lord? Lord, my ass, your Lord is not great to this point. He has already laid himself to rest. What right does he have to resurrect you? This abrupt sentence made the girl extremely angry, because she was a devout believer and a saintess. The girl suddenly turned her head and looked towards the source of the voice. She didn't see anyone, but she angrily rebuked. Where did this heathen come from? How dare you speak to the revered Lord? Dustless. After seeing the person who came, the girl's beautiful eyes widened in an instant, and her rosy lips opened to the maximum limit. She was very surprised. I haven't seen you for a while. You seem to have changed a lot, ruler. Dustless walked over with his hands behind his head. No. You're no longer ruler now. The Holy Grail War is over for you. It's not too much to call you Jean, right? This blonde girl was the ruler, who willingly died in the hands of Dustless. In fact, ruler didn't want to be enemies with Dustless, but due to the rules of the Holy Grail War, she chose to die in the hands of Dustless in the end. Could it be that you resurrected me? Jean asked with a strange expression. This kind of unbelievable thing was impossible if it was someone else. But if it was Dustless, Jean still remembered Atlanta, who was resurrected by Dustless. Chapter 47. Xiao Jiwu's heart was filled with complex emotions. Like an overturned bottle of 5 different flavors, sour, sweet, bitter, and spicy. You should reflect on yourself. Dustless took a deep look at Xiao Jiwu before he turned around and left. But as soon as he left, an uninvited guest blocked his way. Follow me. Mingyue Wu forcefully pulled Dustless's hand away. She used so much force that red marks appeared on her wrist. Why are you in such a hurry? Dustless didn't struggle as he allowed the girl to pull him. He studied Mingyue Wu's frozen expression. It was a rare moment of seriousness. Did you find Summer of Woven Spots? Dustless's face turned cold. If his previous interactions with Summer of Woven Spots were purely for fun, then this time, he had crossed the line by infiltrating IS Academy with terrorists. Before, Dustless could turn a blind eye because of Woven Spot's Chien, but this time, that kid had committed a capital offense. No. Mingyue Wu slowly shook her head before she said in a sinister tone. If I catch that guy, I will make him regret living. Mingyue Wu's tone was filled with unprecedented hatred. Her only sister was attacked by summer of woven spots and was severely injured. How could she not be angry? You haven't forgotten what I said before, right? Mingyue Wu's face was filled with worry. About my sister's condition. Weren't you afraid that I would treat your sister as a mental patient? Now you know to come to me? Dustless said in a sarcastic tone. Before, his warm face was stuck to Mingyue Wu's cold butt. I was wrong. Is that not enough? Feng Wu showed an aggrieved expression. She hugged Wu Chen's arm and acted coquettishly. Her tone was soft and her arms swayed in her embrace. Sometimes it would touch her high cleavage. Dustless's heart was in turmoil as he glanced at the IS Academy uniform that was propped up high. He muttered in his mind, "This kid is too developed. She probably has the potential to be a dairy cow in the future. Only this time, no next time." After some coaxing, Dustless finally agreed. In fact, he had a good impression of Mingyue Wu. In a quiet ward, Morjizan was lying quietly. Her face was pale. Her breathing was very weak, and her eyebrows were purple. It seemed that it was not a simple skin wound. As soon as he entered the ward, Dustless realized that Gungzan's injury was very serious because this was the ICU. There doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Dustless gave it a cursory glance and didn't find any clues. This is a big problem. Mingwu laughed bitterly inside. He gritted his teeth and explained, "My sister was seriously injured by those terrorists and was forced to eat poison." Really? Hearing this, Dustless's pupils rippled as he asked suspiciously, "You saw it?" Dustless opened the tensigan and saw a purple liquid flowing in the blood vessels of the hairpin, eroding her internal organs. This poison wasn't very fatal. It was a slow-acting virus, but it could be very dangerous over time. No. Mingyue Wu shook his head and didn't say much. He took out his mobile phone and played a recording. "Your sister was poisoned by us. Don't try to save her. If you want to get the antidote, take Dustless's head and give it to us. Otherwise, just wait for death." No wonder you hate Weaver Spot's first summer so much. Dustless was relieved. He instantly recognized this voice as Weaver Spot's first summer. But that kid is really good. He even knows how to poison people. Wu Chun praised him politely. "You even know how to kill with a borrowed knife. Not bad. When a sunny and kind-hearted person falls into darkness, his heart will be more evil than anyone else. It's really true. You still praise him." Mingyue Wu rolled her eyes, stomped her feet, and stared at Dustless angrily and said angrily, "I caught that guy and beat him until his parents couldn't recognize him. That guy and Qiandong are orphans. I adopted them back then. They don't have parents." Dustless hugged his head, then looked at Mingyue Wu expectantly and asked, "Speaking of which, why didn't you take my head and ask for the antidote as he wanted?" "The point is, I can't beat you," Mingyue Wu answered dejectedly. She was Dustless's disciple, and they were not on the same level at all. "Can you cure my sister's illness or not?" Mingyue Wu looked at Dustless worriedly, and said in a threatening and warning tone, "If you can't cure her, I might really do as Vega Summer asked. You just said that you're not my opponent, and now you want to fall out with me?" Dustless rolled his eyes at Mingyue Wu, then said indifferently, "Don't worry, leave it to me." Cure? Dustless naturally didn't have that ability, but he had other methods. "You can leave first." Dustless waved his hand. "I'm afraid your heart can't take my rough treatment. Don't scare me, I've seen a lot of big scenes." Mingyue Wu refuted, then stared at Dustless, who didn't seem to be moved at all. She had no choice but to leave. "If something goes wrong, you won't be able to be a man for the rest of your life." Mingyue Wu raised her fist and looked at Dustless warningly, then blushed slightly. "You can't do anything excessive to my sister while I'm away, or I won't let you off." "Do something excessive?" Dustless had a strange expression and teased. "For example?" "Of course, you're not allowed to take advantage of the situation." Mingyue Wu responded seriously, then said in a soft voice, "She's still young. If you really want to find someone to solve it, you can find me." When she said the last few words, Mingyue Wu's voice couldn't be heard at all, although she gave everyone the impression that she was the cheerful and bold type. It was really difficult for a girl to say such embarrassing words. Since you said so, I won't be polite when the time comes. Staring at the graceful curves, Dustless smiled naughtily. Chapter 48. It was normal for Leonhardt to have complaints previously. After all, he was the one and only king of the Devil Realm. Just because of Dustless's words, he had to step down and get lost. This was 2F** king ridiculous. No matter how monstrous Wu Chen's strength was, at least Leo Hart had never seen it with his own eyes. This time, after experiencing it personally, he immediately understood the gap between them. The resentment in his heart towards Wu Chen also lessened a lot. A few minutes later, Kai woke up. When she saw Dustless, she immediately rushed over, and could not help but burst into tears. Being betrayed by her family was indeed a heavy blow to a young girl who was not even 20 years old. After crying for half an hour, Kai finally fell asleep in Dustless's arms. After this incident, Dustless could feel that Kai had more trust in him. It was just like the saying, "A friend in need is a friend indeed." After carrying Kai back to her room to rest, Dustless turned around and left. On the way, he bumped into Leah and Leonhardt. Seeing the two of them, Dustless said bluntly, "Kai said that she has no interest in the Underworld King's position, so Leonhardt will continue to be the Underworld King. Consider it as repayment for saving her life." Really? Leonhardt was extremely excited. There was actually someone in this world who voluntarily gave up the Underworld King's position? What a miracle! Dustless nodded gently. This was indeed what Kai said before. So the world is finally peaceful. Leah's little face showed a satisfied smile. She actually did not have the ambition to conquer the world. Everything was fine as long as everything was safe. However, Leah's beautiful eyes flashed with a hint of uneasiness when she suddenly thought of the people from the Pivotal Council who escaped. Those who escaped were all lunatics who would do anything to unify the underworld. They were forced into a desperate situation and would do anything crazy. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. An unprecedentedly violent explosion suddenly resounded throughout the underworld. The destructive shockwave spread without limit. Wherever it went, all the buildings were turned into ashes. Crack, 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 crack. Everyone immediately walked out of the room and looked up at the sky. There were cracks on the blue barrier. Something incredible has appeared. It can even shatter my barrier. Dustless had a look of surprise on his face. He looked towards the source of the tremors and saw that it was a huge magic array. This magic array exuded an ancient and desolate aura. It was filled with a murderous intent that wanted to destroy everything. When it descended on this continent, everyone shuddered as they felt the aura of death. Even powerhouses of Lionheart's caliber broke out in cold sweat as they stared at the large magic array with fear in their eyes. The heroic spirit king who commands all heroic spirits, demon god Chaos. Leonhardt clenched his fists and roared angrily. In order to defeat us, those old bastards from the Pivotal Council even used this trump card. Yeah. Devil God. What a scary name. Dustless lazily placed his hands in his pockets, a strange light flashing in his eyes as he gazed at the behemoth slowly emerging from the magic array. You look so excited. Liao was speechless as she explained solemnly. Demon God Chaos will continue to summon heroic spirits. Even if we defeat him in the end, the demonic realm will eventually become a wasteland. He won't have that chance. Dustless's body suddenly floated over and flew out of the barrier as he quickly flew towards Demon God Chaos. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of light beams came from all directions as the destructive shockwaves cut through the void. The deafening sound was enough to tear a person's eardrums. Dustless did not evade. He faced the light beam and rushed out. Is that guy crazy? Isn't he afraid of being blown to pieces? Leonhardt was stunned. In his opinion, Dustless was courting death. Boom boom boom. The light beams came from all directions. The moment they came into contact with Dustless, there was a huge explosion that could destroy the sky. His body was blown to pieces, and there was not even a trace of him left. However, it was useless. As a user of the glint fruit, Dustless's body was instantly restored. He was still charging forward fearlessly. Roar, 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 roar. At the same time, demon god Chaos had completely rushed out of the magic array. His huge body was like a demon, exuding an extremely evil aura of destruction. Behind him were a large number of purple worms that looked like enlarged versions of caterpillars. It was extremely disgusting. Roar, roar, roar. As if sensing Dustless's arrival, demon god Chaos roared wildly, as if he felt that he was being looked down upon by an ant, and became angry out of humiliation. "What's a mindless idiot like you trying to show off for?" Dustless muttered to himself, as if he was mocking the giant demon god Chaos in front of him. Roar, roar, roar. Demon god Chaos seemed to understand Dustless's mockery and roared again. The purple tentacles behind him shot out like sharp blades. "You're just an ant. Don't overestimate yourself." Dustless blinked slightly, and his surging eye power began to surge. He focused his sight on the purple tentacles and shouted, "Amaterasu!" Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, a ball of black fire suddenly descended. It was as powerful as a natural disaster, and surrounded the disgusting tentacles, burning them quickly. After burning the disgusting tentacles, the Amaterasu did not disappear. The vines moved forward along the purple tentacles, and the black fire finally engulfed every part of demon god Chaos's body. A large ball of Amaterasu burned in the void, and a scream resounded through the world. "Ah!" Demon god Chaos let out a miserable howl that contained extreme pain. "Seeing you in so much pain, I'll free you." Dustless suddenly raised his thumb and aimed at demon god Chaos in the depths of the void. The majestic spiritual pressure in his body continued to burst out and filled the ball. Wang Su's flash. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 49. Capture her. Dustless swept a glance at Wildbone, and no longer paid attention to her. She was already a turtle in a jar, and no one could save her. The remaining monsters of Nuliang group looked at each other, and surrounded Wildbone and the other monsters. The situation was reversed in an instant. "Remember, I want her alive." Dustless turned around and left. Nuliang group was already in ruins, and if he didn't rebuild it, he would have to sleep soundly. This kind of thing was a piece of cake for Dustless. As a user of the wood style, how could this kind of trivial matter be a problem for him? Boom, boom, boom. The ground cracked open and all kinds of thick wood rose from the ground. All of them evolved into houses according to Dustless's will. In just a few minutes, a grander Nuliang group headquarters appeared in front of everyone. It was more majestic than before, and was thousands of square meters in size. It was hard to imagine that it was built in just a few minutes. At the same time, Wildbone was also captured alive. As for the other cadres of Feathered Fox, they were all killed. The reason why she was kept alive was because she was relatively valuable. "Sorry, Lord Dustless," one of them escaped. After that, Bull Demon ran over with an ashamed expression. He didn't even dare to lift his head. "It's fine as long as it's not Wildbone and Violent Xidagarba." Dustless didn't care. The other monsters were all small fries. Only those two guys were considered to have some status. "I'm really sorry. The one that escaped was Violent Xidagarba." Bull Demon's tone became even more ashamed. He lowered his head and looked like he was too ashamed to show his face. Hearing this, Dustless turned to look at Bull Demon. After a while he said, "It's fine if he escaped. He probably tipped off Feathered Fox." "Then what should we do next?" Bull Demon asked carefully. He was really afraid that Dustless would flip out if Violent Xidagarba escaped. "Tomorrow morning, we will immediately rush to the capital." At this moment in the capital, the flames of war were raging. The Flower Kayuan family was retreating. There was no need for Feathered Fox to do it herself. The monsters she brought were enough to easily annihilate the Flower Kayuan family. Especially after the demons in the wilderness submitted to the Feathered Fox, her strength increased by several levels. The Hua Kayuan family was no match for her at all. Their main camp was taken over by the Feathered Fox's subordinates. At this moment, in a barren mountain far away from the capital, The surviving Hua Kaiyuan clan was temporarily living there. Speaking of which, it was laughable that the world-famous Hua Kaiyuan clan had been chased out of the capital by the demons. They had no choice but to hide in the deep mountains and forests. But the current situation was like this. Feathered Fox's minions were too strong. She didn't even need to do it herself. Her minions were like fierce tigers, beating up the Flower Kaiyuan family. In the mountains there were countless abandoned caves. The members of the Flower Kaiyuan family were hiding in them. The once prosperous Flower Kaiyuan family had completely fallen. There were only a few dozen of them left. The rest had all died in battle. More than half of the capital had been destroyed because of this war. It was enough to see how tragic this war was. There were countless casualties. Now the capital had become a paradise for monsters. When will that guy come to the capital? Flower Kaiyuan Yulua stood outside a cave and looked at the distant sky. It was pitch black there. Raging demonic aura rushed into the sky. It was the capital. Ayaya. Little Yulua. You seem to have a special liking for that monster. How strange. As a Onmyoji, the Flower Kaiyuan family has begun to rely on a monster. A strange voice came from behind. Flower Kaiyuan Yulua gently turned her head. The person who entered her sight was Flower Kaiyuan Shuyuan, who was wearing a white Taoist robe. He had died 400 years ago. Now that he was able to see the light of day again, he was completely relying on the army destroyer used by Flower Kaiyuan Yulua. It's not that I have a special liking for that guy. I hate that hooligan very much. Flower Kaiyuan Yulua's little mouth gently rose, then helplessly said, But other than him, who else can we rely on? Now the capital is already in chaos. What Yulua said is correct. Although I also hate that guy, but we can only rely on that dustless. If we only rely on our Flower Kaiyuan family, we will be done for. Long E, who was leaning on a rock, had a gloomy expression. If they wanted to defeat Feathered Fox, there were two important things, Army Destroyer and Amikihemaru. But Amikihemaru had already been destroyed by Dustless, so they could only rely on him. Kyoto. After the expulsion of Flower Kaiyuan family, this place had already become a hell on earth. Humans were cruelly killed, or directly eaten by demons. In a certain mansion in Kyoto, a large number of demons gathered here. This was the former headquarters of Flower Kaiyuan family. The cadres here were all the subordinates of Feathered Fox. Bang 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 bang. Sitting at the head of the table, Feathered Fox, who had always been elegant and calm, unexpectedly smashed the jade table in front of her into pieces. Her pale cheeks were filled with hostility. Kwanggu was caught. Ka ka ka. Feathered Fox tightly clenched her little hand. It seemed as if her bones were about to burst. All the demons looked at each other in dismay. Everyone was as quiet as cicadas in winter. They didn't even dare to breathe. They knew that Feathered Fox was really enraged. They couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for Dustless. If other people died, Feathered Fox might not even look at them. But Kwanggu was different. Feathered Fox even treated him as her younger sister. Both of them had a deep sisterly relationship. If Kwanggu was caught, it would not be an exaggeration to say that he had caused a great disaster. Chapter 50. In Dustless's view, if you have to find a peerless person, there is no doubt that it is definitely Uchiha Itachi. But then again, Tsunade turned her head and looked at Dustless with curiosity in her eyes, and asked, You and that old man reached a secret agreement. What did that old man have to impress you? Tsunade's words immediately attracted the attention of Jiraiya and Orochimaru, and they turned their heads and looked at Dustless with great interest on their faces. Since you know, don't ask more. Glancing at Tsunade, Dustless rolled his eyes and ruthlessly broke Tsunade's fantasy. He turned his head and looked straight ahead. You. Hearing this, Tsunade's mouth suddenly twitched, and her eyes were burning with flames. She glanced at Dustless fiercely, and turned her head angrily. She inevitably cursed Dustless in her heart. This has nothing to do with you. Dustless said coldly to Tsunade. Sandame's chip is naturally the Manjikyu Sharingan with Uchiha Kagami. The premise for the birth of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is the transplant of a relative's Manjikyu Sharingan. Although Uchiha Kagami is also an Uchiha, he has nothing to do with Dustless, and transplanting his Manjikyu Sharingan will definitely cause rejection. Stop, something is wrong here. At this moment, Orochimaru suddenly shouted, awakening Dustless from his contemplation. Dustless suddenly froze and subconsciously looked at Orochimaru with a dignified face. The scene in front of him was quite strange. Whether it was Orochimaru, Jiraiya, or Tsunade, all three of them were cautious and vigilant, and they were looking at the surrounding environment from the corner of their eyes. Dustless was confused and didn't know what was going on. Haven't you noticed yet? We've been surrounded, Jiraiya said with a gloomy face. His eyes were full of murderous intent. He squinted his eyes and emitted a cold light. It was extremely terrifying. The murderous intent all over his body spread out like a flood. The scene suddenly became extremely oppressive. Dustless lifted his gaze and spread it forward meticulously. He swept past all the substances in the eyeball, but his face was still filled with confusion. Are you really a Kage-level powerhouse? Maybe your strength is like that, but how could Tsunade let go of such a good opportunity? She was the first to attack Dustless with a face full of contempt and ridicule. Seeing that Tsunade was attacking Dustless, Orochimaru frowned and looked at her with dissatisfaction and said in a deep voice, "Now is not the time to joke around. Recently, it hasn't rained here for a long time. It's very dry." Orochimaru's eyes looked around him as he spoke in an unusually indifferent manner. Immediately, the corners of his mouth curled into a dense sneer. At a glance, the surrounding land and mountains appeared to be in a withered state. The ground was even covered with sinister cracks. In such a dry and hot environment, there was indeed a puddle of water in front of them. I'm sorry, this is my negligence." Dustless smiled awkwardly. He suddenly realized that something was wrong. He scolded himself for not being tempered enough. He wasn't as experienced as Orochimaru. After all, Dustless didn't even go to the shinobi school. Except for his strength, he didn't know anything about shinobi. Staring at the scattered water stains in front of him, Orochimaru smiled coldly. His pale face was full of murderous intent, like an azure from hell. TSK, Orochimaru is worthy of being one of the Sannin. His insight is really extraordinary. A cold laughter suddenly sounded, accompanied by the sound of water droplets flowing. He suddenly looked up and saw that the large water stains in front of him were all flowing rapidly. In an instant, hundreds of figures appeared. The Mist Village? Looking at the group of figures in front of him, Dustless had doubts in his heart. He frowned unconsciously. If he remembered correctly, the battle with the mist was in the future. Don't you know how to destroy the plot? Staring at the fog that suddenly appeared inexplicably in front of him, Wu Chun was speechless. He didn't remember that the so-called plot had been shattered by him, a professional plot destroyer. You guys, it seems like you're going to die. Orochimaru smiled cruelly as the wrinkles in the corner of his eyes kept twitching. He had already sentenced the mist to death in his heart. Orochimaru sneered again and again. The Mizukage was too naive and ignorant to think that he could defeat them with a group of weaklings. The 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist? Jiraiya was surprised as he looked at the 7 leading figures. The 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist were quite famous in the ninja world, but their old faces quickly turned cold. Aside from Dustless, the Sannin, and the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist weren't in the same dimension. The former could crush the latter, even if they had the advantage in numbers. Scram if you don't want to die, before I decide to kill you. Jiraiya stepped forward and stared at the mist ninjas. Numbers were nothing in front of absolute strength. Humph. One of the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist also stepped forward and looked at Jiraiya with murderous intent. He looked at Jiraiya, who was much shorter than him, and sneered. Using the blood and lives of the Sannin as stepping stones to become famous, it's best. Dustless looked at the burly man who had spoken and ignored him. However, the young man beside the Watermelon Mountain River Ghost had attracted Dustless's attention. He had a shark face and a ferocious expression. He looked quite young and tall. He was much taller than the malnourished Dustless. Especially his beast-like eyes. No one dared to look down on him. Kisame, this is interesting. With a faint smile on his face, Dustless looked back and recognized the young man at a glance. He was the only one in the world who looked like a shark. Since you want to die so much, I will reluctantly send you to heaven. With a ferocious smile, Orochimaru pounced forward. His snake eyes were full of killing intent as he rushed straight towards the pufferfish ghost. Seeing this, Jiraiya and Tsunade also rushed toward the mist village with murderous intent. Chapter 51. A hint of struggle flashed across Isuna's pretty face. Over the past few months, she felt that her soul had been corrupted by Jango Aoi. Wait a moment. Isuna had no choice but to follow Jango Aoi's instructions and leave. If she refused, this old man would beat her up again and humiliate her. The wise doctor in the past had gradually been driven crazy by Dustless. Sometimes he had a bad temper and was no different from a mad dog, biting whoever he saw. You will be obedient, Jango always said with a fake smile, like a demon that could speak. The Yujin wanderer felt his hair stand on end. He felt that this old man was a monster in human skin. After a while, the unconscious man and woman were brought over by Isuna. They don't deserve to be with me. I knocked them both out. The moment the Yujin wanderer saw the two of them, his pupils suddenly shrank and he shouted anxiously, "Father, mother! You are despicable scum. Cut the crap." Jango Aoi glanced at the Yujin wanderer coldly and urged, "Call Shifeng and ask her to kill Dustless. Otherwise, I will break your parents' legs first. You better cooperate." As soon as he finished speaking, Jango Aoi ran over and kicked the Yujin wanderer's father in the stomach, causing him to wail in pain. "Don't hurt them. I agree to your conditions." Forced to make a choice, the Yujin wanderer compromised in despair. There was no other way. How could he watch his parents be killed? That was absolutely impossible. Time flew, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During this period of time, everything was calm and tranquil as usual. However, Wu Qin noticed that someone had changed. Shifeng, who was usually meticulous in his work, had become absent-minded. He was often absent-minded in class and looked absent-minded. In his impression, Shifeng was meticulous and serious in everything she did. On this day, Shifeng came to take care of Lucy as usual. Perhaps it was because they were the same kind, but Lucy was very close to Shifeng. After all, they were both legendary Pandora. Perhaps there was a resonance in their souls. The usually cold Lucy would occasionally laugh like a silver bell. "Teacher Dustless, I want to take Lucy out for a walk today," Shifeng said to Dustless abruptly after helping Lucy put on her clothes. "Go for a walk? Can't we do it in school?" Dustless, who was reading on the sofa, raised his eyebrows and hesitated. If a legendary Pandora went berserk, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Forget it. Go, go, go. Remember to be careful." Wu Qin originally wanted to refuse, but when he saw Lucy looking at him with an expectant look, his heart softened in the end. Upon hearing Dustless's agreement, Lucy immediately revealed a bright smile that was as warm as the sun. "Speaking of which, you seem to be a little absent-minded recently. You're also in a daze during class, Shifeng." Dustless put down his book and asked Shifeng, "Is it because of that Reaper of yours?" "I've heard about him from Elizabeth. He hasn't returned to class yet. If there's anything I can help you with, just let me know. After all, you helped me solve Lucy's problem." As expected, I can't hide anything from Teacher Dustless. Shifeng sighed inwardly and shook her head to indicate that she wasn't. Only her expression was a little stiff. "Something happened at home. My parents' health is getting worse." Shifeng found a reason to deal with it. Jango Aoki had threatened her to kill Dustless. To be honest, she couldn't do it. Shifeng thought of other strategies to solve the problem. "I'll go to your house to take a look. I have a unique understanding of medical skills." Dustless's sudden recommendation caught Shifeng off guard. She hurriedly refused. "It's just a common cold. I'll be fine after taking some medicine." "Is that so? Then send my regards to your parents. I hope they can recover soon. It's getting colder now. More and more people are catching colds." Dustless didn't talk nonsense. If he continued, it would only make things worse. However, a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. The more Shifeng said this, the more it meant that there was a big problem. After about half an hour, Shifeng and Lucy finished their meal. They changed their clothes and went out. They were beauties with good figures. Therefore, when they went out, they attracted a lot of attention. Shifeng was fine, but she was surprised when she saw Lucy. During this period, Dustless didn't stay idle. He went to the third year to find Elizabeth, but she wasn't there. He had no choice but to come to the girls' dormitory. As soon as Dustless appeared, it caused a sensation. Many girls rushed to surround him. Dustless, who was squeezed in the crowd, was even molested. In the end, he had to use invisible clone to deal with it. These years, the students are getting crazier. I thought that the seniors would be more rational. I didn't expect them to be the ones who can't control themselves. Dustless, who escaped from the disaster, hid under the shade of a tree and gasped. If he left later, his clothes would have been torn apart. Your embarrassed look is really interesting. TSK. I didn't expect you to have such a cute side. It turns out that you're not invincible. You didn't run away from a group of female students. How funny, haha. Suddenly, a figure appeared in his eyes. After seeing this person, Dustless frowned slightly. Lana Lynchine. Facing the girl's ridicule, Dustless's eyes were calm. He wasn't angry at all. Those are my students. Have you ever seen a teacher fight with her students? Besides, if they treat me like that, it means that I'm very popular. If you think that you can anger me by saying that, you're too funny, Lana. Chapter 52. The small amount of information obtained from the bundle of Shao indicated that this was an organization established during the Second World War. It didn't belong to any country, nor did it have any religious beliefs. No one even knew where it originated from. As for the organization's internal scale, purpose and personnel, this series of secrets was even more unknown. Inside the IS Academy, Dustless sat in his office. There was a thick stack of documents on the table in front of him. This was the first batch of documents that had been delivered. The content was almost all reports on the IS industry. However, the useful information was pitifully little or none. Currently, one thing was certain. This organization was very jealous of the advanced IS, and even wanted to take it for themselves. According to the news from the police, during the autopsy, the IS on Weaverban was gone. It was probably taken by the organization. Dustless looked up blankly and murmured, "That idiot is so naive." The white system was actually his protection. Now that the white system is in their hands, for the terrorists, Weaverban has no value. Therefore, it was no big deal to kill him. Yuanwu, how's the preparation for the thing I asked you to do? Dustless's eyes fell on the head of the girl on the sofa. She laid there lazily. Perhaps because it was too hot, her collar was casually open, and the huge jade ball was about to jump out. However, with the terrorists bothering him, Dustless really didn't have the mood to appreciate this beautiful scene. I've prepared everything. Don't worry. Yuanwu naughtily stuck out her tongue and winked at Dustless. Then her face showed a rare look of worry. But are you serious? Now the whole world is in an uproar. Of course. Dustless gently nodded and immediately frowned. It's just an IS competition. Is it as exaggerated as you say it is? If it was a normal IS competition, it would definitely not attract attention. However, the prize for the final winner is too rich. Not to mention others, even I am tempted. She pouted and narrowed her beautiful eyes. The winner is actually a fourth-generation machine, personally built by Dr. Xiao Zhizhi. How many people are not tempted? This is only part of the reward. Dustless smiled mysteriously. He opened the drawer and placed some blueprints on the table. Take a look. Although the fourth-generation console is good, it's not as important as these things. It's just a few pieces of paper. What's so strange about it? Even more, Mingwu scoffed. However, out of curiosity, he still picked it up and took a look. Before she had time to read the content, she only saw a few eye-catching words on the design page. Her expression instantly froze, and her lips opened and closed several times. In the end, she exclaimed in shock. "TT." Hearing this, Dustless held his head with both hands and teased. Since when did the eloquent you become a stutterer? Isn't it just the 5th generation IS design? Look at how shocked you are. Isn't it just the 5th generation design? Don't you know what this means? Hearing this, even more panicked. This guy didn't know the hunger of a starving man. Some countries in the world were still in the 3rd generation of IS. Even countries like France were still in the 2nd generation. The 4th generation reward for this IS competition was already ridiculous enough. Now even the 5th generation design was given out. Are you saying that this is also the reward for this competition? He shook his head vigorously and forced himself to calm down. He asked suspiciously, "The reward this time is too generous. Once the news gets out, I'm afraid it will attract the attention of criminals. At that time, the losses will outweigh the gains. I want the outside world to go crazy." Dustless smiled coldly and said, "If they want to destroy people, the ancestors will go crazy. The current target of the vanquished nation machine industry is all kinds of advanced IS. If they know that I gave out the 4th generation and 5th generation IS designs as the reward, the poisonous snakes hiding in the dark will definitely jump out. In front of this huge bait, I don't believe they can turn a blind eye." For Amir by Shurjia, the terrorists used all their tricks. With the 4th generation and 5th generation design, the terrorists of the vanquished nation machine industry would definitely not be able to resist. Lure the snake out of its hole? Even more immediately understood Dustless's intention. Although the plan was not bad, the risk was not small. IS Academy would definitely become the target. "Don't worry, you are the president of the student council. Just do as I say." Dustless comforted him with confidence. "Let's set the time for 7 days later. No matter what, I'm still against giving out the 5th generation IS design. If it doesn't work, we can find a fake one." Even more still insisted on his opinion. If it really falls into the hands of the terrorists, it might change the world. Even more loudly, even more seriously looked at Dustless. "You don't have to worry about this," Dustless said slowly. "The 5th generation design is only a part. This was given to me by Shu. Even that guy couldn't draw out the entire design. Do you think other people can?" This, even more's heart skipped a beat. He thought for a bit, changed his mind, and silently nodded in agreement. Indeed, if the bundle of Shao, the pioneer of IS, couldn't design something, it was even more impossible for others to do so. Although the design in front of him was real, it was a useless piece of paper to some extent, because it was impossible to create with the current technology of mankind. If it was possible, Shao would have created it a long time ago, and used Dustless as a test subject. "Let's see how long you can endure." Dustless's dark eyes flashed with a mysterious light. Just as even more said, this was inviting the wolf into the house. Chapter 53. Is that so? Your judgment is very wise. I think so too. Dustless chuckled. Just as Oxghost said, capturing that female fox to warm the bed was too flattering for her. Ayaya. It seems that there is still one alive. Looking from afar, there was actually a figure struggling. His whole body was pierced through like a hornet's nest, and blood was constantly flowing out. The person in front, quickly report your name. A deafening sound came from afar. With this shout, everyone including Dustless was stupefied. Looking around, it was the demon leader called Hidden Master Bai. Ungrateful guy, how can he know the name of Master Dustless? Oxghost's eyes flashed with cold light. With a clang sound he pulled out his katana. I will deal with that guy. Wait. Dustless's cheeks showed a faint smile. This guy is very principled. He has to wait until I report my name. I think he is quite cute. Cute? Oxghost was speechless. He couldn't understand Dustless's thinking at all. The other party was the cadre of Feathered Fox. He was quite powerful and commanded nearly 10,000 demons. How could this be called cute? Go and capture him alive. Dustless ordered Oxghost. The latter just nodded slightly. Hidden Master Bai's whole body was pierced through by the Yasakani no Magatama just now. Now he didn't have the energy to deal with Oxghost. So he was captured alive in just a few rounds and brought to Dustless. This guy was covered in blood, and his flesh was badly mutilated. Looking carefully, there were dozens of holes in his wounds. But even so, Hidden Master by still didn't retreat, and was very loyal, which made Dustless look at him in a new light. You are very brave. It is Feathered Fox's blessing to have a subordinate like you. After seeing Hidden Master by, Dustless said slowly, Don't you want to know my name? My name is Dustless. Dustless? Although he had heard of this name a long time ago, Hidden Master by was still shocked. He asked in surprise, You're the one who killed Devil Child Pill and captured Kwangu? Other than Lord Dustless, who else would have such courage? Ox Ghost said disdainfully. On the other hand, Dustless looked at Ghost Bull with a strange look. This kid was getting better at bootlicking. Lord Feathered Fox said that if any demons encounter Dustless, we are to pass on a message. Hidden Lord by looked up at Dustless and said, You better not let anything happen to Wild Bone, or he'll eat you alive. Ayaya, how scary. How can a woman like her warm my bed? I should just stomp her to death. Dustless pretended to be scared. All right, you can go now. Dustless waved his hand. The sudden decision made Ghost Ox and Hidden Master by stunned. Lord Dustless, are you going to let this guy go? Ghost Ox dug his ears, thinking that he had misheard. This guy was an enemy, a loyal follower of Feathered Fox. You must be joking. Hidden Master by also looked at Dustless in disbelief. Don't misunderstand. I just think you're cute. Moreover, Feathered Fox will lose no matter what. You won't change anything. Dustless replied calmly. It's not that Feathered Fox is weak. Her only fatal weakness is that she chose the wrong enemy. Are you looking down on me? Hidden Master by looked at Dustless unhappily. His whole body was wreaking havoc. He tried to teach this guy a lesson, but a burning pain spread all over his body. The Yasukani no Magatama had already pierced through Hidden Master by's body. However, this kid was not destined to die yet. Some of his important organs were not damaged. So what if I look down on you? Do you think you're qualified to be compared with Lord Dustless? Ghost Ox asked coldly. This guy was too insensible. Forgive this kid, and he still didn't know how to be grateful. If there's nothing else, I'll throw you down. This spaceship is too small to accommodate you. Dustless stood up and walked over slowly. I still have something to say. Hidden Master by quickly said. I heard that Feathered Fox captured Blossoming School's Yulu alive. She also said that if you dare to mess around with Wild Bone, she will deal with Blossoming School's Yulua in the same way. Hearing this, Dustless's expression was rather strange. He couldn't help but mutter. If I sleep with that kid called Wild Bone, does Feathered Fox plan to do the same? But does she have the ability to do so? Hidden Master by and Ghost Ox's cheeks twitched. If Dustless played like this, Feathered Fox really couldn't take revenge. I'll be back. After taking a deep look at Dustless, Hidden Master by jumped down from the spaceship. Lord Dustless, what should we do next? Ghost Ox asked. He knew that Blossoming School's Yulua and Dustless's relationship was not bad. What else can we do? This time, let's be the savior and destroy the capital. Dustless looked at the dark sky in the distance. It was the direction of the capital. Demon Chi was soaring to the sky. Even the sky had turned dark. The dark clouds were oppressive, penetrating the endless despair. A team of a few hundred demons wanted to destroy Feathered Fox, who occupied the entire capital. It sounded like a fool's dream. After all, after the demons from the distant wilderness joined Feathered Fox, they occupied the entire capital. The number of demons under Feathered Fox's command reached a terrifying number of hundreds of thousands. Even at the peak of Nuliang Group, there were only tens of thousands of demons. In terms of numbers, it was 10 times more than Nuliang Group. Not to mention the battle, the most basic data was enough to make people despair. However, after witnessing Dustless's rage, Ghost Ox and the others' confidence skyrocketed. After all, he had summoned an army of 10 trillion undead. Even if he didn't reach this number, he could still completely crush Feathered Fox's underlings. Chapter 54. These guys are so strong. Who are they? Elizabeth stood up with difficulty. Her body was about to fall apart, and she did not have the energy to fight anymore. These people were too strong, and their strength was overwhelming. Her beautiful eyes stared at the people approaching her. This was the first time in her life that she tasted despair. These mysterious people of unknown origins. Just one of them was already too much for her to handle. If they were to gang up on her, Elizabeth would be beaten up badly. I've never heard of them before. Elizabeth's usually wise eyes were filled with confusion. If these mysterious people were to be exposed, they would definitely rewrite the world's Pandora rankings. If it was Dustless, he would definitely be able to recognize that these people were Sakura's teammates from the Heaven Court, as well as the candidates for the Valkyrie project. Who are you guys? Wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth, Elizabeth gritted her teeth and asked, "Who gave you the order to brazenly invade the Seeger Academy? You don't have the right to know." One of the Valkyrie coldly refused to answer. In short, everyone who is related to Wu Chun is our target and must be killed. Regardless of whether their relationship is good or bad, they must be executed. For example, if you want to hate someone, go to hell and hate that guy for offending someone he shouldn't have offended. Hearing this, Elizabeth's face turned pale. It turned out that she was not the only one who had suffered misfortune. For example, Shadalisa was probably doomed as well. These words are really scary. Anyone who is close to me, regardless of whether they are friends or enemies, must be killed? This is indeed the style of that old man Aoi Jengo. A lazy voice suddenly sounded, and the Valkyries frowned. Only Elizabeth felt like she had broken out of a cage. She was very familiar with this voice, and knew that it was Dustless. "You're that Dustless?" the Valkyrie with glasses asked, and then took the initiative to introduce herself. "I'm Franca Portia, and they are." "I'm not interested in listening to your self-introduction." Dustless's face was filled with solemnity as he spat out a bone-chilling breath. "Get lost before I'm really angry. Take that Heaven Court Sakura with you. Remember, get lost far away and don't appear in my sight. Teacher Dustless, you." These words immediately caused Elizabeth to be astonished. She found it hard to believe. In her impression, Dustless was rarely so serious, especially when he flipped out at girls. Right now, it was as if he was a different person. "What did you say?" The Valkyries were furious, and looked at Dustless with resentment. They were used to being high and mighty. Talking to Dustless was already showing them mercy. This bastard actually told them to scram. He was simply too arrogant. "Stay away, Elizabeth." Dustless stood in front of Elizabeth and said straightforwardly, "There may be a lot of noise later. It won't be good if it affects you. Run for your life." I understand." Elizabeth nodded obediently, and quickly stood up to leave. As she jogged away, she did not forget to turn her head to look at Dustless. He was especially scary in this state. Elizabeth even had a feeling that the usually gentle teacher was really angry now. Maybe it's because of Shadalisa. Elizabeth guessed. Previously, the Valkyries had said that anyone related to Dustless, good or bad, would be wiped out. Obviously, Shadalisa and her sister, Violet, were also the Valkyries' prey. That was why Dustless had shown such a scary expression. "The few of you will die a horrible death." Dustless's eyes were bloodshot. In a hoarse voice he said, "I gave you a chance to escape, but you didn't cherish it. Then all of you will die here. Watch your tone, you bastard." One of the Valkyries angrily glared at Dustless. Her name was Kristen Evra, and she came from England. She had a bad temper to begin with, and after being repeatedly looked down upon by Dustless, she couldn't hold back her anger and swooped down. Her speed was so fast that it was fleeting. Seeing this, Dustless gently raised his right foot. Murderous aura burst out of his body, and the light on his foot gathered as he kicked out. Lightspeed kick. The speed of light was so fast that Kristen Evra did not even have time to react before she was engulfed by the destructive light. Boom, boom, boom. Blazing flames burst out of the girl's body. Her flesh and blood were instantly burned to ashes, and she died on the spot. The flames spread, and the void boiled, burning everything around her. What a vicious move. The other Valkyries' expressions changed drastically. Realizing the danger, they hurriedly retreated, not to mention being kicked. Just the flames alone were enough to burn them to death. If they tried to get close, they would definitely meet a tragic end. The fate of Christine Evra, who was swallowed by the fireball, was self-evident. She was afraid that not even her bones were left. She was kicked to explode by Dustless. Not even the remains of her body were left. Everything was incinerated. You bastard! Their good sister was instantly killed by Dustless, and the other Valkyries were furious. They gritted their teeth and wanted nothing more than to kill Dustless immediately. You all have this expression of hatred. It seems that you have to die. You have been brainwashed by Django Aoi too deeply. There is no saving you. When it was time to destroy Flowers, Dustless would not be merciful. These people were loyal to Django Aoi, and if he let them go, they would definitely seek revenge on Shataraza and the others. At that time, they would definitely cause a lot of trouble. It was better to eliminate them now. Heavenly Hand. The eye power of Rinnegan Sharingan was launched, and Wu Chen disappeared silently, crossing layers of space, and appeared behind Valkyrie like a ghost with a cold face. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.